What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. It's the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chaser. Before I get things started, I want to give a shout out to all the members of the Green Gorilla channel. There's nobody watching now, but I assume that a few people will matriculate in as I keep speaking. And of course, this is being recorded, so you know how that goes. The first thing I want to do is give a shout out to the members of the Green Gorilla channel. I want to give a shout out to Waffle Weed, Kisses from Afar, Rais Muajid, 77 Base X, True King 337, Life of Commerce, Brian McMurray, Apex Fowler, Kieran S., Javon Thompson, Anthony Davis, BGS Ibmore, Raphael Brown, Professor Carl Tone Jones, Lionel Jean Louise, Artisan MC, Damon Brown, Donnell 360, Herbert Lewis, Seven Coast Dojo, Rogish the Buildmonger, Pulpit 28, Michael Ross, Charles Rogers, Papadidas, Travis King, B. Hillfire, Rick Ross, Sandra Jean, Brotherly Love 215, Charles Gilmore 3, Patricia Colley, Q Pickquay, Kuasasi, Greg Oliver, Greg, Barry Little, Alan Wiley, Mr. Valentino, Jason Hales, Black Men Being Brutally Honest, Omni Americana, Cameron 87, Deshaun Nolly, Brian Peaks, Nelso, Kareem Not Karen, Doc LaRock, J. Charles, Mark Holt, Lee Ways, Jeffrey Speed, The Face, Mark Swift, Show Me, Odd Collard, Donald Watts, Cozy Corner, HipHop.ca TV, Coach DC, Kashif Caldwell, I Am Black Man, Nichita, Mr. Blue Collar, Barnolas, Kyle J. Sura, I'm Just Jules, TD Hip Hop Media, which, by the way, got a treat for you in a second, Drew Main, Mr. Heat, Sir Anthony, MLR, Universal 178, Black Swerve 404, Rashid Barnes, Aaron Smith, DH, C Truth the Revelator, Gold Professor, Arthur Unknown, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Kalan Jakala, Ricky Dawson, Cedric Bowman, True 7360, BK Born Shaheed, James Washington, Hostile Adept, W. Pierre 1, Marvin Battle Jr., and I cannot forget my brother in heaven, Forrest Windu. And also, I want to give a shout out to all the people who support me on Patreon: Kevin Marchbanks Owens, William Joyner, Javon Thompson, Tyrone Hampton, Jules Winfield, Romello Scuggs, Dornan Smith, Excalibur, Jason Bourne, Anna 219, Pursuer Prisoner, Taz, Kwaku 217, Dragon 59, Supreme Ibmore, Adrian Hicks, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi Momal, and Asangwa. So shout out to y'all. Thank you so much for supporting the Green Gorilla channel. I was, scheduled to do this an hour later, but there was some confusion between somebody who's going to join me here, and we're going to have a conversation about black boys in education and what we can do to remedy some of the problems that, black boys face in education. And, I know this is not going to be a titular, subject. When you talk about black boys, tend to avoid the conversation. You talk about black women, right? Or, if it's something related to black women, people just, they appear. But, when it comes to black boys, our own demographic, people, they shy away from the subject. It's not interesting enough, And so we're going to grapple with it this evening, okay? And so what I would like to do is introduce a guest. And he's a member of the Green Gorilla channel. And this is the first time, to my knowledge, that, he's made an appearance on the Green Gorilla show. I'd like to welcome Jules. I'm Just Jules to the show. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. It's a good Sunday afternoon.
Good Sunday afternoon. Good. Some people say I'm borging.
Yeah, I'm here.
I apologize for to you. Is there any breaking going on with you, Jules?
I can hear it on your end. I don't hear myself borging, so I'd have to have somebody else confirm that.
Okay. I might have to shift. Well, from time to time, you may hear some borging. I don't know how to stop it on my end. All I can do is just do the best that I can do, and I hope you can tolerate it. I apologize for any technical difficulties that may be occurring. So, is it bad? That's what I would like to know. Does it sound really bad? And if so, I can switch microphones. That way, perhaps maybe alleviate some of this this borging.
It's not getting better.
It's not getting better. Okay, so let me switch up. Let me switch microphones and try something a little different. Okay, and we'll see if that'll work. Okay, let me try that. Check, check, check. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
I can.
All right, is the boarding gone? All right, I'm having all kind of technical difficulties right now, man. Jesus Christ, man.
Don't want us to have the conversation.
What happens when you don't come in for a day or so? All hell breaks loose. Give me 1 second, man. I'm gonna get this straight.
Yeah.
All right, man. They basically saying, man, that I need to press on. I'm sorry for the boarding. There's nothing I can really do about it. I'm trying to put in a different microphone, but that microphone is not working, and so therefore, is all that I have to work with. Do you still hear me, Borgen Jules?
I do, but I can understand you. So we can, see if my answers
Yeah,
are suitable.
push forward, man. Let's just push forward. So, as it pertains to education among black men and boys, we have a problem. Okay, what do you understand that problem to be? If I might ask you that question, we're just gonna have a conversation. What do you perceive the problems with black males in education?
Boys are often ignored or sorted into unproductive paths or locked away, really. And I've seen this and experienced some of it myself. So that's one of the reasons why I think I sent an email to you about this. Like my parents made an intervention, seeing me get sorted, even though I had potential, and they decided to remove me from public school and give me an alternative.
Okay, so you actually were having issues and problems with your education in your formative years? Is this what it was? This is why your parents perceived that you needed an intervention?
Yeah, I was a decent student. I was an honor roll student up through elementary, pushed into magnet programs in like the secondary, that middle school area, and then put into pretty much every student population once I got to high school. So they didn't continue that the magnet or IB or AP. They sorted me out, even though my grades got better. They basically pulled me out of that. The school administration did, and my parents didn't see that as being correct. And so they talked to the guidance counselors, they talked to the principals, and they realized that they weren't going to do anything. And one counselor actually pulled my mother inside and told her that you need to do something because this school is not going to do something for him.
Right. So initially you were in a public school, right?
Correct.
Now, I will say this, the difference between you and I as it pertains to education is that initially I attended a private, grade school. Okay. And so this private grade school was only attended by black kids. It was a Catholic school. But I did rather well in that environment. I mean, there were girls there, and it was not a boarding school. And, but for the most part, I excelled. I even skipped the fourth grade. I didn't even have to go to the fourth grade. Just skipped it. And so I did rather well. But most black boys in public education actually do not do well. Okay. And so we're trying to figure out what are the reasons and what are the causes for some of the poor performance that you see for black boys in public schools. Okay. So what do you think some of the reasons that black boys don't do well in public school are?
Some teachers are hostile. There are not many other male teachers, I would say, from until I was sent to boarding school. So let's say kindergarten through 8th grade, I had 2 male teachers. So that would be another 7 female. The male teachers were either neutral or positive towards me. Only one of them was a black male. The rest were 50-50 white women, black women. And this was at a time where there were no like Latina or Asian in my area. So now I'm sure that there are more teachers of, other ethnic backgrounds, but they largely didn't see black boys as being a primary focus. Even when I was in junior high and had some privilege by being in like a magnet environment, which is like, they're trying to draw the students who are performing well. So even then you get the bare minimum.
Okay. So I just want to ask a technical question right now. What do I sound like right now? Is the boarding still going on? Is it continuous? Does it fluctuate? What's going on?
Right now, it sounds good to me.
Okay. And so I want to talk a little bit about what is actually happening with black boys in school. Okay. So if you look at, and I'm reading from an article here written by a brother by the name of Pedro Antonio Noguera. Okay, he's a black man. He has a Hispanic sounding name or a Latino sounding name, but he is African American. Okay, to the best of my knowledge. And the introduction to this essay he wrote basically goes as follows: all of the most important quality of life indicators suggest that African American males are in deep trouble. They lead the nation in homicides, both as victims and perpetrators. And in what observers regard as an alarming trend, they now have the fastest growing rate for suicide. For the last several years, black males have been contracting HIV and AIDS at a faster rate than any other segment of the population. And their incarceration, conviction, and arrest rates have been at the top of the charts in most states for some time. Even as babies, black males have the highest probability of dying in the first year of life. And as they grow older, they face the unfortunate reality of being the only group in the United States experiencing a decline in life expectancy. In the labor market, they are the least likely to be hired, and in many cities, the most likely to be unemployed. Now, beset with such an ominous array of social and economic hardships, it is hardly surprising that the experience of Black males in education with respect to attainment and most indicators of academic performance also show signs of trouble and distress. In many school districts throughout the U.S., Black males are more likely than any other group to be suspended and expelled. And from 73 to 77, there was a steady increase in African American enrollment in college. But since 77, there's been a sharp and a continuous decline, especially among males. Black males are more likely to be classified as mentally retarded or suffering from a learning disability and placed in special education, and more likely to be absent from advanced placement and honors courses. In contrast to the most other groups, where males commonly perform at high levels in math and science, the reverse is true for Black males. Now, you might think that class, the idea would be, okay, if you come from a middle class or a wealthy family, you can avoid the pitfalls that all Black males suffer from, or have the problem with. You can avoid that if you have money or if you have money. But it's also true for Blacks from middle class and wealthy families. So the question then is, what do we do about these issues? Because we also know that if Black males do poorly in school, then it's going to have an impact in other areas of their lives. So I'm going to let you speak about this, Jules, for a second, and to tell me what you think about those stats and those facts and how you avoided them. I mean, and I want you to give us some insight into your experience with boarding school. And is it a viable alternative for Black males? Like, try to develop policies and programs for Black boys to attend boarding schools. So I'm going to let you speak on this for a second, and I'm going to try to see if I can prevent this microphone from boarding. But
Sure.
please, Jules, speak at length about this if you can.
Okay. So yeah, ninth grade, I was given the opportunity to go to either a military academy or a boarding school. The thought was that it would give me like a radical intervention, just because the path I was currently on was only going to lead me towards an undetermined future. Um, I went to several military academies on the East Coast. Some people probably heard of them in this. Fort Union in Virginia is still one that comes to mind. And then I went to several boarding schools on the East Coast as well. That's where I'm located. So that's why. Starting up in the Massachusetts area and then all the way down to North Carolina. And the resources, the teacher size, all of those things are kind of like the big appeal. You also get a lot more focus and a lot more structure. And that was what they saw as being the most optimal thing. We chose one that was all male instead of co-ed, because being in like a remote environment, even if it's more structured, you're still going to have the opportunity to make a lot of mistakes. I've known other people who went to co-ed schools and they kind of confirm that. And so the one we chose was in the Mid-Atlantic, and there's about 500 students. The racial breakdown is roughly half white, a quarter black. I'm sorry, 1/8 black, 1/8 Latino of various extract, 1/8 Arab, 1/8 Asian, and it was probably one of the better things that happened in my life because one, everything was structured from sun up to sundown. It doesn't mean I didn't have any opportunity for free time, but it meant that most of my time was put to a purpose. Even free time was buffeted by other things, and a lot of it is based off of. They basically want to interview who you were, have you take like a minor IQ test type of situation to like just see where you are, and then at that point, you get to meet certain staff, certain faculty, and get to know whether or not you would, at a glance, get along with them. Partially because you're living with them. These are a lot of these places are campuses, and I'm talking about boarding. So they have like a home that's within an eighth of a mile of a dorm, or they have an apartment attached to a dorm. So you actually know these people. They're not in your hair all the time, but you are there with them, and they are with you. Um, when I got there, most of the students I knew who were Black also had a similar situation, or the most common outside of that were like military families who wanted to give their kids stability as well, just because they're, are going around so much. Um, the majority of us got in either merit based, arts and crafts. Like if you are excellent painter, writer, sculptor, there's a lot of kids who got in with that. Some with sports, and then some with science and engineering. There weren't as many as those, but general merit is kind of where it goes. So they'll ask you for your transcripts, um, do that face to face interview, and then you kind of get thrown in. Um, I think one of the better parts of it, the structure. I'd describe a typical day would be, you're up at 7, you can have breakfast, or if you want to eat in your room, whatever. Go to class 8 to 2:30, 3 o'clock ish, and then sports. You have mandatory sports each period. So if you're doing it semesters for whatever, or trimesters, you have mandatory sports. So it's like another 2 hours. So I think 3 to 5 o'clock. Then you have mandatory dinner. You do have a mandatory lunch as well. I forgot that's in there as well. And then study hall from roughly 7 to 9, and then free time is squeezed in there. Half an hour here, hour there, and then at the end of the night from like 9 till 10:30, and then lights out. And lights out is enforced by student monitors, who are basically student prefect, resident advisors. So you have student leadership. One of the things that I really liked was that you got to see a lot of people from a lot of places. Not everyone was English as their first language, but you got to really encounter other boys who are around your age, who are around, who are not just like you. It really opens up your world. You make friends with these people. You get in disagreements, get in fights with them, and a lot of times you are taught to solve these problems on your own. And if it does get to like a physical fist fight, several times students would have it out. The teachers would, take a step back. A lot of times the female teachers would actually step in and try and stop it, but a lot of times the male teachers would, like, let them fight it out for a little bit, and then kind of settle it. Like, okay, is this over with? We're done. Now, how are you going to resolve this? How are you guys going to deal with each other here? Because we're here in the middle of nowhere for the next 2 weeks. So you have to, learn how to collaborate with each other. Some things that people didn't like was that we'd often have class on Saturdays. Some schools still have that, some don't. But it, again, is just it's a different environment altogether, and time moves a lot differently. So you have, let's say a day and a half for a weekend, and then every month or two you would have a long weekend. So you could go home with some of these people, because you're going to make friends with people when you're so secluded, and at that point you really get to see just a different world. Some of my friends were from the US, some were on the East Coast, some were from the South, Midwest, and you really just get to see a lot of people, how they live, how they learn. You build a new network, and summer vacations brought me back home, so I'd meet a lot of my friends again who weren't where I was, and I'd see, some things had changed, and even my parents and my grandparents said about the same thing, that there's something that changed. And I think part of it is that you become so grooved into this structure that you really have you have no opportunity but to do what you're supposed to, and they give you a lot more resources in order to do what they want you to do. The person who ran the school at the time was a headmaster who was like a World War II vet. He died probably like 2 years ago, and he said his goal was to make boys into men. He didn't say black boys, he didn't say white boys, he said boys into men. And he was a tough guy. He was just tough, structured, disciplined, and he wanted all those boys to become that. And for the most part, I'd say we did. and I'd recommend it to anyone who had like any apprehension.
So yeah, one of the reasons why you sent the email to me, and I just received the email yesterday, and I apologize because I sent it 2 days ago. And I'm sorry for getting every now and then you're going to get bored. I apologize for that. But we've been talking about education for Black boys and how the public school system is failing us. Okay? And one of the things that I proposed was that, look, if we're going to right this ship and turn it around, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. You're going to have to get Black boys to go to schools apart from their families, apart from their neighborhoods, and have a different kind of structure and a different kind of environment. And then maybe perhaps they can be in the mental state to be able to learn. And I think that what you said about your experience at this boarding school pretty much confirms my suspicions. But I mean, of course, this is just conjecture on my part. I'm pretty sure not everyone does well at boarding school, okay? But what was interesting that you did discuss was that the male teachers allowed you to fight without any disciplinary action that would, put you into contact with the criminal justice system. What are your opinions about this?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things I noticed was schools, like public schools, made a shift away from, you get in a fight over something that, kind of warranted it, but it was a mandatory 3-day suspension for both parties, regardless. So like if someone would, assault a family member and you hit them, try to, avenge her or whatever, you're both going to get suspended or all three parties. Right. But in this environment, that type of situation, I remember one point, like, here's the thing. If you're going to be a mixed environment with that, and there is a class element, there's going to be some racial stuff. There's going to be some class stuff. And there were poor Black, white students there. Not so many of the foreign ones, just because if you're going to send your kid to from an international country, you're probably going to do it. You're going to do that with some money. So those kids didn't really have that, but you'd have some problems that would spring up from this. And you would get in a fight with someone who on Monday morning, you'd have to work on a science project with. So you could hash this out over the weekend or on a Thursday night or whatever like that. The RAs would, try and stop some of this. And for certain people who, went too far, they'd get expelled. But a lot of times it was, you need to learn how to settle these problems. And sometimes it does come to physical violence. Sometimes it doesn't. But ultimately, you do need to learn how to work with each other in the future, because you will have to work with someone. Whether that be on, school project, an extracurricular thing, if you're doing volunteer work, you're gonna have to work with these people.
Yeah. Look, I don't know. Like, how old were you when you attended the school? Like, what age range? If you can,
Ninth
if you don't
to
mind.
12th grade.
Okay, so during your high school years. Okay.
Yeah, they. So I did 1 year in a public high school, and that's when the counselor talked to my mother and told her that I should do, a radical intervention, and she chose this, or suggested this out of the basket of things, and then they gave me the opportunity to restart that 9th grade, and then so I did 9th through 12th. So basically, I had 2 9th grade years, and then graduated. I started school younger, so I graduated on time, at 12th grade at 18, and then undergrad, graduate school.
Well, congratulations, man. That's excellent. I want to give a shout out to the Prophet of Thought. Thank you for dropping by today. Look, here's the thing that just kills me about the extra penal attitude and the policy that exists currently within the public school system. Like I know, you have a bunch of boys together, there's going to, at some point, be disagreement and there's going to be physical violence. It's going to happen. Now, the question is whether or not this kind of phenomena should ruin or destroy a person's trajectory in life. The schools I attended, that was never a possibility. It was never an option. And the fact that, this is the way people treat young men in these schools, to me is actually depressing when you think about it. But
It is, and I'd say one thing, like there's a limit to it. Like one person of note who I think he had gone through like 7 or 8 of these type of schools, but he was just like a serial, just insane person. He would get in deep trouble all the time. This white guy who got famous like in the '90s for it was that thing in Singapore. Do you remember the kid who spit on the sidewalk or put gum on the sidewalk and got caned? That guy went to my school at a certain point, like a few years before me.
really,
Yeah, but he was a senior when the guys who were my prefect slash RA, when they were seniors, when they were freshmen, they were in the group of kids who he would just torment. So he was like an already um, just a warped guy. But he had gotten thrown out from a series of schools in a similar vein. So like there's a lot of people who have deep problems, but a lot of these guys, you know, would get into fights, would get into disagreements, but we would also do, really amazing things. Like we'd put on a play with all the students doing all the fabrication. We'd learn from like a master carpenter how to build a set, like really cool skills. And then, we'd try and, do all the rehearsals. We'd have like, obviously instruction from teachers and stuff like that, where stage locations were, but you'd have to coordinate amongst yourselves as to how to do this. So there's a lot of good and a lot of just opportunity for you to grow. And then, when you have problems, you have a bunch of people who are around you to guide you.
did
And
you
I'd
ever
say, oh, go ahead.
did you ever become homesick to the
Yes.
point?
Yeah.
Okay.
My first year, I got incredibly homesick because it was my first time being like long term. I'd gone away to like summer camp, like a wrestling camp, football camp, but never, like this is where you're going to be for 9 months. And I remember getting incredibly homesick the first year. And one of the dorm parents was like, he was a guy in his late 20s, early 30s. And he had told me how his parents sent him away to a similar thing when they were a military family. And he told me like, look, it's going to be hard, but you have a lot of guys who are around you who have the same thing. You can make friendships here and you could do this. It's difficult at first, but you get used to it. And it becomes easier. And it really did, to the point where like a lot of those guys, this is almost a decade and some change later, and I'm still friends with a lot of these guys. And we've all had similar experiences, though, many have had different trajectories. But yeah, that homesickness was incredibly. I remember. I kind of still remember it today. But there was nothing I could do. I couldn't quit and go home. Um, that money is put down, the time is put down, the uniforms are bought. Got the underwear marked with your initials. Like you're invested, so you got to go through with it.
So another question I wanted to ask you is that so you said that you met people from various backgrounds. It wasn't just black people that you were surrounded by. But you did say it was all males, correct?
Correct.
Did you get the opportunity to have any interactions during those years with members of the opposite sex,
Yeah,
uh,
they encouraged.
girlfriends,
Yep.
social gatherings, and things of that nature?
Yeah. So uh, there's all girl schools as well, and they would try and hold dances, social outings. So like if you go to think of like a theme park, like I don't know, Six Flags, Busch Gardens, something along those lines. They have like a mixed school day. They'd have like dances, stuff like that. You'd also have like sister schools where you go support their team, they support yours. They'd have ski weekends where like they try and very chaperoned, but they make sure that you actually have encounters with girls of the opposite sex. And when you have like long weekends and stuff, or spring breaks, those things, 90% of the students would go home. You've made friends with people by this time, so you go home with like whoever your buddy is who lives nearby, or is able to, or wants to have you over as a friend. And so then you go to wherever your friends from. Denver, Colorado, whatever, spending the weekend there, and then you know, live the normal life. You're not wearing the coat and jacket and meet girls, and because you had spent so much time, uh, you know, with such a strict schedule, so many sports, you're in better shape. You're mentally sharper. So it was good. Yeah.
But did you find the absence of girls in the school to be a benefit for you in relation to distraction, or do you think it was an impediment? Do you think that
At the time, I didn't really think about it that much. Like, it's really nice to see a pretty girl when you don't see one. Um, but you're so busy all the time that you really didn't have time to think about it. Like, I knew some guys who would like always be on the phone with their girlfriends. I talked to mine once every, 2, 3 days. Um, I just never was like pressed to be all in that business like that. Um, and then looking back on it, it really wasn't a problem, because it made focusing in college a lot easier. Like, I spent most of my time, class, I had my friends, but then come 5, 6 o'clock after I'd have dinner, you know, go to the library for 2 hours. And when you set that schedule, you're just able to go somewhere, and when you're in that environment, you're able to just do what you need to do. Um, in the library, it's easier to in like a open environment in the opposite sex there. You're obviously going to talk to people, talk to women too, but you know that you're there to read, take notes, make flashcards, complete any assignments, start any papers, do anything like that. So it helped to let me know that, like, a time to work, time to play, and like how that actually works.
so? So all in all, your experience is a good one. But the question is, some people would say that, and we're proposing that for the most part, if black boys are to get out of the crazy situation that they're in relation to education, if black boys are to get out of it, I think an intervention like yours needs to be imposed, and black boys need to separate from their families and go to environments where there's a learning rich community and where they can learn more than just book skills, but also learn practical skills. And as I understand it, your athletic involvement was also compulsory, meaning that you had to engage in athletics.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
So tell me, I mean,
Yeah.
what if you're not an athletic kid? So
That's
what?
yeah. So they're not going to have as many all stars. They did have some people who, wound up. So they do have athletic scholarships, right? So a lot of you'll see like a lot of people who will go to like a junior college and then go to college, or sometimes they'll do like a postgraduate year at an institution and then go to college. So that you have some of those people, and then you'll have some people who are able to do undergraduate, or I'm sorry, do their work and are pretty good athletes. So you field a decent team. Um, so you have like varsity, junior varsity, and rec league. And if you're not good at to be on the varsity league or the JV league, you got rec league. So you're going to do something for that 2 hour window. And I didn't excel at all sports. Mine were football and wrestling. Track was I just couldn't cut it. But when that came around, I did JV tennis, and that was fine. But it was good to learn how to play tennis. I knew some kids who were horribly uncoordinated. They did rec league basketball, and it was funny to watch. But some of them got better. Some of them moved up to JV. One guy made it up to varsity. It gave you an opportunity to compete against boys and actually learn how to cooperate with each other. And I thought that was the most useful thing. And a lot of times when I see some of my younger cousins, nephews, nieces, the level of physical activity, unless they're like made to do it, I see them playing video games more than anything else.
And that's an issue, that's a deep seated issue, because a lot of times, in this new culture that we live in, I don't know how old you are, just Jules. Do you mind me asking?
Mid-30s.
Okay, so you're an older statesman. Okay, you're over 30. You're mature. You're a real man. Okay, you're not a young adult anymore. You're full fledged adult. Okay, Do you have any children?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, I've just not met anyone who actually takes things as serious as I do, wants to plan as much as I would, or I meet people who are more obsessed with status rather than family development legacy. So it's a mixed bag. Plus, I live in a city that is it's hard to scout for a potential partner that I could have as a wife, mother, and try and develop a family that way.
Yeah, I mean, I assume you graduated from a boarding school. You went to I don't know if you went to a prestigious college, a
Yeah,
state school. I'm not aware. I'm not trying to put your business out there.
I'll say top 50 university for undergrad and grad school. So it's a name you've heard of. Got a good degree. Didn't graduate with honors, but I'm fine with that.
Gotcha. There's a question that a brother Black Uhuru Strikes wants to ask you. And the question is, do you think how you view and interact with women today is different from what it would be if you had attended a co-ed school? If yes, how so? So he's going to want a healthy answer to that question.
I can kind of answer that, right? Because it's a counterfactual. Like I can never really know how how my life developed. I'd say like, all right. So my first freshman year, I was a lot more nervous around women. The second one, having removed that element and done things that I could look back on and say, I had hit honor roll for X amount of semesters, gotten, my Letterman's jacket, all that stuff. Like I knew what I could do. When I made it to undergrad, I was fine around women, and I would say I knew how to prioritize what I needed to focus on. Classes for class. I have friendships with women too, but it's not. I don't have frivolous friendships. Like I have people that I'll have a beer with, but I often have friendships that have to have some substance. Most of my women friends are people who would be professionals who I need something from. Like I'll say this: one of my best friends is she's in the financial sector. I work in a lot of data stuff, so she'll put me into an arena where I can work a contract for her company. So there's like a financial transaction there. And when she needs something, when I need something from her, or I'm sorry, when she needs something from me, she actually knows that I have a pretty good network, white collar and blue collar, because I give a lot more information about myself, but it I know a lot of people I can recommend as far as like, she had a house that needed to be fixed. So I know a couple of licensed bonded professionals that could do some renovation work. So I could connect her to that. So there's a lot more. Yeah, I'm fine with women if that short answer helps.
Yeah, I went to an all boy high school, and it was also one of the top tier high schools in the city of St. Louis, and some of the most wealthy kids attended that institution. I wasn't, my family wasn't wealthy. Some of them drove to school in Mercedes Benzes, and I know one kid had a Porsche.
Yep.
But I had to take the bus to school, the city bus, and I did what I had to do. But I mean, I got a quality education by having gone to that institution. Okay, and no issue with women at all, really, other than the kind of rigors that men have to go through in the society in which we live in relation to women. Because I mean, women of today are different than the women in my mother's and my grandmother's era. There's not very much sense of duty anymore. A lot of dedication to family anymore. It's just a lot of dedication to self and one's immediate desires and hedonism. That's just the way I see the contemporary woman. I'm not trying to be deprecating all the way through and through, but it just seems like if women aren't happy or satisfied at any given moment, they're ready to separate whatever bond they have with you and move on to a different situation, and that's socially acceptable, even if you have children. So,
yeah, that's something that I think that's a very of the moment. Like the hedonic treadmill is that thing that I know a lot of people really live on. And I'll tell you that the exposure at that school gave me a lot to really know like how people from a lot of different backgrounds work. Um, like you would meet uh, like kids who had like serious money. Um, all right, one guy who was a Middle Eastern of some extraction, and his dad was like head of Samsung International, something like that. And I remember him showing up on the football field in a helicopter. Right, one uh, they had a building named after them on like an Ivy League campus, and had been generations and generations at that campus. Right, and those people lived lives that were they seemed just disconnected from reality, as though like they just everything was if everything is catered for, you have nothing to know. You don't know where the floor is. Um, the people I most got along with were either similar to me, working class to white collar backgrounds, the military family people, and there's a lot of small business, small entrepreneurs who saw that this was an opportunity for the kids, and those are the people who actually I saw jump as the school intended. And I want to say out of the entire class, like it's technically 100% of people are supposed to go, but one person died graduation weekend, and so we had like a 99.8% matriculation to college.
That's excellent to be. I
Yeah,
mean, that's almost all damn near perfect.
and I'll say one of the better things was my guidance counselor at the school was a black man who had been through all of this. He's right now he's probably late 60s, early 70s, and he had come up in um, what's it called, Homewood. His godfather or one of his uncles, I can't remember which, was the poet, was the playwright August Wilson, and he
Oh
was the person
man,
he put me onto. Like he really cleared up a lot of things about what is the purpose of college, what is the purpose of this school. Um, and he was pretty straight up with like, what are you going to do, where are you going to go, what is this going to cost you, like time trade-off. And I mean he's still doing similar stuff more in a private capacity, but it was really good to have that type of person there. So like these environments aren't all it's not that there was that movie from like the 2000s with Sean Connery where they showed like the black kid who could play basketball and everybody's stuffy and upper class, and there's some element of that. But those are like there's a tier of boarding schools that are like that, that are like the like Deerfield, um, Choate, um, St. Albans, and there's day schools that you'll see like the Obamas wound up going to. But then there are schools that are just out of that top tier that are really trying to make the next generation of people who are really going to be dedicated to what they want to do. And a lot of my friends, most of the black ones, wound up, undergrad, graduate school. One went to the Naval Academy. Um, like really tried to really solid men. So I'd say it's a consideration, and people do get the sticker shock, but there are a lot of scholarships that are out there that are there's public ones, but locally you can look as well. I think my first year or two was paid. I can't remember. I'd have to ask my mother or father about that. But there was a local black judge who had a trust that was set up to provide scholarships for just this type of situation, and so that basically cut that cost down by like 85, 90%. So you have to like look around, talk to your local Rotary Club, NAACP. They'll have a list of these type of things if cost is the key factor that prevents you.
so basically, you received assistance in order to attend this institution, this boarding school.
Yeah, for the first 2 years, definitely.
That's awesome. I mean, that there was actually some support for you out there to do so. And well, another thing is though, so most black boys, teenagers, uh, on down, man, they don't have the opportunity. They're not from a cultural environment which would induce them to even perceive a boarding school as an option. So my thing is, I think the black boys need an intervention all across the board. And I think that there needs to be a public school intervention, even to just have like a public high school or a series of public high schools that only enroll and only deal with the specific demographic of black boys. What would you think of that kind of proposal? Do you think that that would be constructive or no?
Absolutely. Like schools do have like, element of socialization, but if you want students to operate, you want them to be as best as they can as students. Like they have to be able to learn, they have to be able to engage with dialogue. You know, one thing that I remember was we had read uh, in one of my English classes, we had read Malcolm X and then The Invisible Man were part of the core for that year, and some of the students had a problem with it because it wasn't seen as like the American canon. But if we're going to talk about race, you're going to talk about that between two of the primary races in America. But you got to engage with that material amongst the people that you would be working with. And I thought it produced a lot of really good stuff. I don't remember like specifics of it, but I do remember those two books being like kind of controversial to talk about. But I think you're not going to get that environment if you're distracted or you're focusing more on the socialization and like relationship development. That can always come later. Like boys are always going to be out there looking for women, girls, and girls are going to always be out there looking for men or boys. And so if you focus on your studies and you're able to be at your top of your game, the world opens up to you, and you have the opportunity to make a choice from your best possible position. So yeah, and I think single sex education is the best situation. If you could get that done in public school, I think that would be great. But I know there would be some pushback from some type of Title IX, Title 10, something like that.
Yeah, what do you think that's about, and why do you think that is?
To
And I
make
want to
boys
show. I
boys
just
socialize to girls and vice versa, to like make them wholly interdependent in some weird way.
I want to show you something really quickly, and the audience as well. Again, I apologize. I'm having buffering issues, which is sometimes causing the microphone to board. I apologize for the technical difficulties and your patience in dealing with me. But I do want to cover a question before we move into that segment. Black Uhuru asked you another question. That's not the other question. Yeah, it is. So he says, so
Yeah.
you might agree that attending an all-male school allowed you to put women into a proper, more productive perspective or space in your life.
Yeah, definitely. Like, yes, that'd be a short answer.
Okay, that's a simple answer. But I want to show you this, okay? So let me share the screen here. And let me find the window. Chrome tab. Share. Can you see this?
Yes.
So this is a very old article. We're talking about 91, okay? I was a sophomore in college in 1991. And there was a proposal to have a boys only school, especially for black boys, okay? We're talking about Detroit, all right? Now you know what Detroit is like, okay? I mean, maybe personally you don't know, but you can imagine what the conditions are for black boys in Detroit, okay?
Yeah.
This is like a true inner city, okay? A lot of gangs. I think you have the Disciples and the Vice Lords in Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot of drug dealing going on, a lot of, I want to use there's a lot of pimping going on in Detroit, pandering is what they call it. But I mean, there's a lot of illicit activity going on in Detroit. And, there was some educators who proposed to have a boys only school to mitigate some of the problems that black boys had. And of course, this is around the time when, the crack epidemic was at its height. And also at a time where gang culture is blowing up. And so look what these people did. And look at the organizations that put a halt to it and did their best to try to prevent it from happening. Now, I could see if this was a situation in which you had a demographic like who was already wealthy and who were already succeeding and who had all of the cultural capital and knowledge that they needed in order to be successful. But we're talking about black boys. And look at the organizations who tried to put a halt to it. Okay? So again, 1991 is when this article was written. Okay? So the article basically says, desperate over the wasted lives of its young black men, Detroit is about to open the nation's first public schools for inner city boys unless a court challenge blocks them. Other large cities have contemplated similar schools, but have backed away in the face of political pressure or the fear of lawsuits. So they're letting you know right now, there's a need for these kind of schools because there's a problem with black boys. Okay? They're letting you know this already. Okay? It's already stated. They want to do this, but they can't do it out of fear of a lawsuit or actually having been challenged with lawsuits from doing so. Okay? And this is for a population of young men who are hemorrhaging, who are doing poorly in every major index related to education, okay? So that has left Detroit with the nation's most radical attempt to rescue the next generation of black boys, many of whose troubled older brothers have already been lost to drugs, prison, or homicide by isolating them in classrooms with specially trained teachers and curriculums emphasizing black achievements. Here, the plan is seen not as fashionable education theory to be tested, but as an experiment with lives at stake, a last chance to save families and ultimately the city itself. And it goes on to say, people here know what it means to bury a young relative or visit one in jail. We've got to do something to turn this madness around. Okay? But just 3 weeks before the schools are to open, the plan has been thrown into question. A lawsuit to force the male academies to admit girls was filed in federal district court on August 5th by the American Civil Liberties Union and the National Organization for Women Legal Defense Fund. And Judge George E. Woods will begin hearing the testimony on Thursday. Opponents call the schools a discriminatory throwback. Race is not the issue because 90% of Detroit's public school students are black. But opponents say that in denying girls access, the academies are ignoring the problems of inner city girls, like teenage pregnancy and dependence on welfare. And so, my issue with this approach right now, so it's ACLU and the National Organization of Women that put a halt to this. And let me just put this out here, man. It's my strong opinion. These women do not give a single solitary F about young black boys. They don't care. Okay? And in all likelihood, these weren't even black men who started these initiatives. Do you understand what I'm saying, Jules?
Yeah. And one thing is that last sentence seems like a contradiction against the previous one, or one of the earlier ones. They're saying that the problems of inner city girls are teenage pregnancy, but that can be solved by separating the boys and the girls. That seems like a really simple solution.
But look,
like I'll say this: no boy in my school got a girl pregnant through 9th through 12th. And that's not to say that they didn't have sexual activity. Like, you're going to be around girls, so that sexual activity is going to happen. But none of them got a girl pregnant. We also had like comprehensive sexual education. The person who did that was like she was registered RN, and I think she had a doctorate in nursing too. But like she gave us comprehensive sexual education. And so like every boy there, we all either have families or don't. You know what I mean? Like had planned families.
Right.
So if they did that at the public school level, and especially in a lot of major cities, which is where a lot of black boys are, then you could see things make a sharp and radical shift.
That would be common sense. But, I don't always rely on common sense, because common sense, first of all, is not common. And common sense can also lead you astray. Okay. But in this instance, I do believe that if you did separate boys and girls, okay, and you gave them an environment in which you taught them consistently, look, there's a set of things that you need to do in order to be successful for yourself. Apart from the opposite sex right now, we're going to teach you those basic skills. And then when you're more mature and you're ready to be of age to take on the role of a parent within the context of a family, then you could come together. Okay? But at the present moment, I mean, this whole push for equality is all about a push for making sure that nothing that happens positively for boys is going to be missed out by girls. And, this issue to me is what's good for boys in the long run ends up being good for women in the long run. Do you get what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
If you have socially responsible, healthy, knowledgeable, and mature black boys, what is that going to do in relation to the relationships they have later on in life? It's going to make them better. It's going to, I'm assuming here, because this is conjecture, okay? But the idea here is once they have a trajectory in life and they have a goal, they're going to be less actively involved in all of the rigmarole, right? A lot of these kids, man, are too young to be in these serious relationships anyway, right? So take them away from the environment in which that's a possibility. Attend to their education, their social and spiritual development, and then when they become of age, they can do whatever it is they want to do. Okay, but we've reached a situation in which women are so afraid, and I can understand that in the context of white boys. But they have here's the thing. White boys who want to already have the resources to attend those kind of schools anyway. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're absolutely
They don't
right.
need to go to the NAACP. They don't need to go to some charitable organization in order to get tuition. They already go there. They already have the resources set up and established so that if they want to, if their parents want them to, they will attend those institutions anyway. But we're talking about
multiple generations.
But we're talking about environments that black boys don't have, that they need so that they can grow, apart from even the dysfunction that exists within the context of their own family life. Because there's a lot of dysfunction there. And some of it is social and economic. Some of it is race-based. And is predicated upon policies and institutions that have existed prior, and that still have vestiges that are left over. Do you understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I'm from the South, and I've seen, I want to say probably a quarter to half of the boarding school or private schools in the South are vestiges of Jim Crow integration. There's just a ton of those. So they're going to exist anyways. You might as well make the best opportunity available for the boys of your own group.
So I want to read a comment. Thank you, Jonathan Soul, for the super chat. He says, and I apologize for any technical difficulties related to boarding. I'm sorry, okay? But Jonathan Soul says, I had to stay at my son's school because those white female teachers, principals, see our sons as a threat. They see our sons as the enemy from birth.
I mean, there's some truth to that. Like, the problem with talking about race is I don't do it in like an all or nothing. Like, I can't say like all of X group are bad or all are good. But I can recognize when they're bad and when they're good, and you wind up having encounters where you realize uh, this person is terrible, and they probably come from a lot of terrible people too. Like, I'll say one of the first teachers I knew. She wound up on the news for writing on a young girl's hair or face to like remember to bring something like her glasses or her notebook back to school instead of like writing a note to give to the parent. Like, they wrote on her face. So I know that it can definitely be a problem.
Black Uhuru, welcome to the show, and Megatron Meta, welcome to the show, man. Glad to have y'all here, and sorry for holding y'all for so long. And I apologize for any technical difficulties that you may be experiencing right now. I promise to get it straight at some point in the near future. But as it stands, we are all systems go. No turning back now. Okay? So I want to, basically say this. If gender is the primary lens through which you see the world, and I don't think it should be, okay? But a lot of these white women, that's all they see is gender. To them, race is unimportant. It's a convenient means by which to continue racial discrimination by default, okay? So even though there's not any, de facto racial discrimination taking place, facto, excuse me, there's often, de facto racial discrimination taking place. And we're not actually doing anything to remedy it because we're still stuck on this gender issue. And the funny thing about it is, all along, these white women have been privileged from the start, many of them. So I don't even know what it is they have an issue with. I mean, if you look at higher education today, women are at the top of the list. There are more of them in college. There are more of them graduating from college. What's the big deal? And this trajectory has been put in place by, I guess, they're fighting for it. But then the question becomes, who's willing to fight on our behalf? On our behalf. That's the question.
Some of it has got to be the men, and some of it's got to be the women too.
Well, may I interject for a second? There's an issue on the female end, something that the Green Gorilla brought up earlier about that school in Detroit for boys. Well, there is an issue in 2014 with Obama's My Brother's Keeper program. I have an article right here by Kimberly Williams Crenshaw that says My Brother's Keeper ignores young black women. And it goes into the whole, I left a link to the article in the private chat. You can read it yourself. If you'd like me to read pieces of the article, I can, because it's wild.
Feel free to read part of it. I've read from that article before, but I would like for you to glean your own understanding and to put forth your own interpretation of what you see there.
All right. What I see here is she's upset about My Brother's Keeper, a 5-year, $200 million program that will give mentorship, summer jobs, and other support to boys and young men of color, which is an issue anyway, most of them African-American, Hispanic, and that entirely omits the challenges facing their mothers and sisters. At a meeting in Washington last week to announce new commitments to the program, school system, and nonprofits, Mr. Obama gave a perfunctory shout out to all the heroic single moms, but did not utter the word girls even once. I take issue with her being upset at the $200 million. It's 2014 at that time. Okay, BLM didn't exist. Now you fast forward to 2021, and 23 out of the 30 groups that BLM gave money to were female or LGBT based. And it was way more than $200 million. I'm pretty sure Black Girls Rock and other programs that are dedicated to black women and black girls have higher revenue but we don't complain about getting any of the money from those programs. Why is she mad about this?
Greedy, ideological, rigid, recalcitrant, narrow-minded, myopic. I mean, these are some of the things that I think of because they're operating off ideology. Okay? And so they can't escape from it. I mean, everything they see, their whole world is tempered by and colored by not missing out on opportunities related to gender bias. Not giving men the opportunity to have a leg up. This is what I would consider to be interest group politics, identity politics, the politics of recognition. But the question is, how long can they ride the wave of second wave feminism? Now, of course, Kimberly Crenshaw is a member of the third wave of feminism. In its intersectional phase, feminism has turned into, right, the third wave, has moved into the third wave, okay? But how long do we have to stay here? Let me show you some, so this is the article that you were referencing, right?
Correct.
Now, let me just show you the stats. Let's deal with the facts of the matter, okay? So let me stop the screen and let me share this another screen. And I think you're exactly right about this, Megatron. You don't see black men in droves doing whatever they can to thwart the progress of black women and girls as they move forward and do what it is they want to do in order to elevate themselves or to remedy their issues and their problems. They don't have a problem with attending to what's unique to them. But they have a problem with us attending to what is unique to us. And I find a real, bad faith, double standard taking place there. How can you work towards improving the quality of lives of black women and girls and think that that's a good mission and to create programs? They have an entire academic discipline dedicated to exploring black women and girls' issues. But black men can't do the same. And when they do, the first thing they do is they try to shame you away, and then they talk about how bad black women have it or girls have it. And not to say that they don't have it bad, because they're not at the top of the tier, okay? Even though, they continuously pontificate about how, they're the most educated class. Let's look at the stats. Let's look at the facts of the matter, okay? So I'm going to share the screen another time. And somebody's got some background noise going on there. I don't know who it is, but you got the sound of music playing in the background. So anyway, there's this article. This is a 2017 article, so it's rather old. Let me zoom out of that because it's zoomed too far into it. But so some people say college education is often, or perceive it as a powerful means by which to close the race gap. But it is at best only a partial answer for 4 reasons. And this is the article. It's written by 2 white folks. See, white folks are weighing in on how to solve our problems. My personal opinion is stay out of our shit. I mean, I'm not, saying that they can't weigh in at all, but you need to be at arm's distance when you talk about these issues. You don't need to be at the forefront. But everybody has got an opinion when it comes to us and what we need to be doing and what we don't need to be doing and who they're going to support and who they're not going to support. I'm just saying this, man, with these white folks weighing in on what's good for us. And it always boils down to them saying something is not necessary or needed for black boys. They don't come out and say that shit about black girls. So Megatron is right on point with that. When have you ever heard anybody from any sector, anywhere, say that, that program is not right because it neglects what's going on with black boys? Have you ever heard that by anyone in the press?
Not once.
And this is what pisses me off, man. But let me get back to this. Okay? I'm not going to read from this. I just want to show you the chart. So, of course, there's got to be an ad there. Let me move back from this. College gap by race and gender. Okay? So, in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, black men and women were on a pretty much like a similar trajectory. Do you see that? Can y'all see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, now, there's this ongoing argument here. I don't have all the data. Okay, maybe that's something I need to, look into. But right around the 80s is when you see this humongous chasm begin to grow between a trajectory between black men and women as it pertains to higher education. Now, in the 2005, what you can see, like in the mid 2000s, the numbers began to improve, but then they plummeted right again somewhere, between 2005 and 2010. You can see that, correct?
Yeah.
Do you see that? Okay, so now what demographic is getting the most degrees?
White women.
And this has been since the mid 90s. Now, it's one thing to say, okay, we need to remedy this situation. Let's remedy it. Let's, make the change. You've done what you came here to do. Your business is done. Your work is done. Now you have the inverse, and they're justifying it because I guess they don't want to lose a foothold. But at the same time, come on, man. You did what you came to do. This ain't the 50s. It ain't the 60s. It ain't the 70s. And it was always damn near equivalent in relation to educational attainment for black men and women. But at the same time that you see this trajectory changing and the course changing for black men and women, and black men leveling off between the 80s and 2000s, getting a slight increase in the early 2000s to the, latter half of, the midpoint between 2005 and 2010, then you see a dip again. You still have them arguing for investment as if it's the 80s. For white women. White women have become the standard, the litmus test, the touchstone to determine what is progressive in relation to policy and education. And that ain't got nothing to do with us. I wish they would stop that shit. So when you get the ACLU and you get the National Organization of Women doing what they can to countermand, to stymie, to thwart our efforts to improve our condition, they need to be condemned for that. They need to be put on blast for that. Because we're talking about real life and death. Because look, if a woman doesn't get an education, what is to become of her?
Well,
if a man doesn't get an education, a black man, what is to become of him?
He's going to be out in these streets.
He's going to be dead in jail.
So I'll add, I do know from some of the people I went to college with, a few have admitted to me, women have admitted to me that they get allowances up until marriage. So I don't know any black men who get that.
What?
Hey, man, do you see this, man?
Yeah, their parents want them to not have to struggle for for any money. They put them in an apartment that has like a doorman. It's part of the game. It's just not. It's not talked about. But
hey, we got a racist. Hold on, let me interject. We got a white supremacist somewhere in the house, man. Like if we got a commentator or anybody who's here that's a moderator, you need to handle that. I ain't even see it, when I was looking at it. But Fuck your bitch ass white boy. I'll slap the shit out of you, motherfucker. How about that? Bring your bitch ass up here then. You got so much motherfucking animosity. Yeah, I'm talking to you, white boy. You don't like what you hearing here? Get the fuck out of here. I'll slap fire from your bitch ass face, boy. Don't come here talking that shit. Bring your bitch ass up here, punk ass motherfucker, you recessive gene punk ass bitch. Coming to my shit trying to blow it up. You fucking pussy.
I'm on his page right now. He goes through a whole bunch of political channels and trolls them all. 4Rimp is his group, allegedly.
Boy, you don't want to see me, motherfucker. You fucking punk ass boy. You coming through the wrong place. Get rid of this fucking bitch. Don't ever come back to my shit, boy. Don't come to my channel. Especially if you can't show up like a man. But you got these internet motherfuckers, man. I swear to God, bro. I'm putting it out there. I don't play that, man. The last time I was called a nigga, that motherfucking white boy walked away limping. Real talk. You don't want to walk away limping or leaking. I don't play them games, man. You not about to be disrespectful on my shit. Somebody told you to come here and talk that, man. You talk that shit elsewhere. I don't play them games, man. I do not play them games, man. Fuck you, boy. And everything you stand for. Don't ever come to my shit like that. Don't ever come to my shit like that. I'm ready to fucking smack a motherfucking red light boy. Especially an openly one. You got the nerve to call us niggas. You better watch your motherfucking self, boy. You better hope a motherfucker don't find out where your ass is, boy. Coming to our shit trying to blow it up, man. Don't ever do that, man. Don't play that shit on the GG channel, man. We don't play that, bruh. I'm telling you right now, I don't play them games, man. But anyway, man, go ahead, man. You know, I gotta every now and then the G come out. You understand what I'm saying? So it had to come out right then and there. But I don't play that, man. We dealing with enough as it is. And then you get these, man, let me tell you something, bruh. The only time I ever retreated from hurting somebody, man, who used the N-word was a white man, man. He had to be somewhere around 70 years old. And he called me a nigger as I was walking down the street named Jefferson Davis on my way to Xavier University to receive my lessons that day. I think I was taking pre-calculus or something like that. Okay? And I had chemistry a little bit later on that day. The only thing that prevented me from knocking that white man, he was a bicycle on the sidewalk. He told me to get out of the way, nigga. The only thing that prevented me from hurting that man right then and there was the fact that he was over 70 years old. He looked like he was geriatric. So I basically said, you know what? If you that old and you got that much hate in your heart, you hurting worse than I am about what you saying and how you feeling than I am about how having heard it. So I let it go. But if he'd have been younger, I'd have knocked fire from his ass. I might have put some fire into his ass. Because I was carrying at that time in Louisiana as a college student. That's the only time I heard the N-word and didn't respond to it aggressively. I don't play them games, man. But anyway, man, back to the regular schedule, man. It's hard much for me being a gangster at that current moment. Now I got to turn back into the reserved, erudite, and intellectually astute professor. So Anyway, man, you see this chart and what it indicates and what it, basically exemplifies. I mean, in other words, the demographic that's doing the best is white women. Black men are at the bottom. So we need to work towards having schools, we need policies and programs that seek to ameliorate our condition. And damn it, if one of the ways or the means by which to do so is to have an educational environment where we can focus on our own unique problems. I don't see anything that's unjust about that. That's just my personal opinion. Okay, Jonathan Soul, thank you for the donation. He says that Dr. Malefe Asante said we are the ones we're looking for. Fathers, mothers working together are the answer. Liberals aren't the answer. Ask the Haitians. So you guys can respond to this as you see fit, but ultimately, you are the answer. But right now we have this bifurcation, this ideological rift, which prevents us from even helping ourselves. And any focus on black men becomes anathema. It's something that, is perceived as regressive. And how could it be when we never were able to enjoy the accoutrements, so-called, along with being in a patriarchal class of person? We never had the ability to enjoy what it would be like to be superior and patriarchal. So why paint us with that brush? Do you get what I'm saying?
If I may,
and sorry I had to go off, but I'm the G with a PhD, man. I'm not gonna have some white supremacist on my show trolling me, bruh, and not address it. Sorry if you think I got out of character, but that isn't the character. That's just me for real. Okay, so I'm just letting you know. Go ahead.
Well, this chart. First of all, thanks for having me up on your panel. Obviously, I'm very much an admirer of what you do, and hope you can continue to do it and build. This chart proves the lie from the perspective of black men, proves the lie that is intersectionality. This whole notion that just by virtue of being a man, any man, that you're automatically in some position over and above all other women. From the perspective of black men especially, that's a lie. And it's been a lie for the 30 years, I guess, since that phrase and all the quote scholarship, end quote, that has been associated with it has been published. And we've never, as black men, we've never taken on intersectionality collectively. We haven't taken on what has been wrought from it, the lies, the fallacious social programming, the fallacious educational programming that specifically powers and enables all of black feminism, at least over the last 30 years. So when you see something like this, I'm glad the brother earlier mentioned and presented Kimberly Williams Crenshaw, because she's the illustrious author of intersectionality. And so it's not a surprise at all that she would take a very public and strong position against Obama's My Brother's Keeper program. That's not a coincidence. It's her credibility on the issue of intersectionality, this argument that black women are somehow the most oppressed group of women or group of people than all women, just primarily by virtue of them being black and female and or poor. And then you add to it the rainbow effects as well. That's a lie from the perspective of black men. If you're assessing quality of life, it's a lie. And I think at some point we're going to have to collectively make this a legal issue. You're going to have to take on the Black female groups in court. You're going to have to take on the feminist groups in court. And all of their supporters, corporate, government, etc., their benefactors, we're going to have to take them on in court. Because going back to what Jules has presented, you're not going to, and what was presented earlier, what you presented earlier, Gigi, with respect to Detroit, the effort to have all male schools in Detroit. The moment you attempt to do that with public schools, they're just going to replicate that process again. So you're going to have to be proactive in terms of neutralizing their ability to use intersectionality mumbo jumbo to prevent your being able to do that.
I think we should just go directly at Kimberly, go through her whole background, and ask how did she go from University of Akron to an Ivy League school without so much help? I want to know her background. I want to know why she came from a 2-parent household and she's against Black men, because the Black man obviously provided for her family and helped her grow up and enter University of Akron, which led to her Ivy League education and coming up with this intersectionality. I want to know why she's a member of a majority white male fraternity called Quill and Dagger. That's right. I want to know why she's a member of Quill and Dagger. And I think other people need to start asking these questions as well. How are you an intersectional feminist, but you're a member of Quill and Dagger?
Man, look, let me just say this, bro. You know, like, if you know, like one of the first papers she wrote on intersectionality was written, you know, in the early 90s, bro. And, you know, like 91, Mapping the Margins, I think is the paper, okay? It's called Mapping the Margins, Intersectionality, Identity Politics, and Violence Against Women of Color. And so what the paper sought to do, in my opinion, was to create the conditions in which the incarceration and the social death of Black men can become justified. That's essentially the beginning and the ending of it. Like, you could think there's more to it, but that to me is the crux of it.
Recycling sojourner bars, basically. Okay.
It's not even recycling her bars. What it is, okay, so it's talking about violence against women of color. Who's committing acts of violence against women of color other than Black men? She's not talking about white men committing acts of violence against Black women, which they have done historically. Or, you know, maybe, you know, the Black women were willing participants in the misogynation. It wasn't called misogynation for white men and Black women, though. It was called what it was.
Placage.
I mean, hey, like, if you want to get technical about it, I mean, yeah, it wasn't much of a choice, but I mean, you know, today you still, like, I mean, BGS just recently did a show about Black women and white men and Black men and white women. And, you know, I even read a segment of Black Skin and White Mask from Frantz Fanon. And one of the things Frantz Fanon was really, like, he said it in passing, but it's something that must be taken into consideration. As it pertains to Black men and women, there has to be some sort of romance there. Because a white woman messing around with a Black man is taboo in a way that a white man messing around with a Black woman is not. Do you understand what I'm telling you?
Yes.
Do you get what I'm saying?
But that's also why they created the lie of the Black male, you know, sexual predator. I mean, that's why because the argument is that, you know, we're so beastly, you know, at a sexual level that the white women have no choice but to submit to our brutal sexual nature. And that's why they created that myth.
The irony
to explain what as you described, what were obviously consensual adult intimate behavior.
Well, so here's my deal with intersectionality. Okay, first of all, I've already gone over ad nauseum the studies related to domestic violence. Okay, and you know, this is white women, it's black women, it's Hispanic women, it's women all over the damn planet. And what's true in Israel is true elsewhere throughout the world, especially white liberal societies. The fact of the matter is, and this is 40 to 50 years of objective, not activist research. We're talking about objective and impartial research related to the matter of DV and how it happens and who's perpetrating it. We know that women are just as likely as men to commit acts of violence against their intimate partners. And we also know that the demographic that displays the most pronounced instances of DV are lesbian women.
Facts.
So why are we continuously talking about violence against women when women themselves are violent to each other and to their male partners?
The Combahee tribe has the whole
But
microphone.
see, we've never collectively put in court, put these lies before some review from the standpoint of a tort, or some sort of tort that has committed, because these are basically like sanctioned lies, and they serve as the basis for social programming, for laws, for policies and regulations, and it's all based on lies, it's all based on fallacies. But you must at some point have a judicial decision made that says that intersectionality is a lie, and here is all the science that proves it to be a lie. Therefore, it must be discounted or disregarded as the basis for any sort of educational programming, any sort of social programming, any sort of regulatory activity, law enforcement, etc. But you must first delegitimize it in court before you can then attack it along a policy basis.
Let me say this. What has occurred is several persons have attacked the theory in the academy, okay? Not a lot, but a few people have, and I think they're very convincing in their argumentation because, look, you cannot explain away what women themselves admit to doing. You can't do that. But they try to do so by a concept called asymmetry. In other words, the idea behind it is men are so much more powerful than women that when they do hit women at all, or do anything in response to whatever they're suffering from women, the response is so far from being symmetrical that it's unjust in and of itself. But that isn't even actually factual. It's not factual. I got a Harvard paper right now, along with many others, that basically says the highest instances of harm that take place within the context of the violence that exists between men and women is when they're fighting each other. That's when they get harmed the most. Not when there's unilateral violence or, like one-sided violence where a man is striking a woman. The woman is more prone to get hurt when she's involved in what is called bivalent violence. That's when they get hurt the most. Not because they get slapped around because they didn't cook the toast, they burnt the toast, or they scrambled the eggs too hard. This is not how this occurs. But you got every Lifetime channel movie. You have, cultural narratives. I was just watching a television show the other day. I can't even recall what it was, but the theme is heavily interwoven into a variety of different media that we observe on a daily basis. Oh, you have a husband that hits you, huh? What power was what it was, raising Canaan. So you have a situation in which, you know, a woman drug dealer, the head of a drug dealing cartel or family, who herself commits acts of violence and sanctions and justifies actions of violence, is taking the time to do justice work for violence against women, where she's killing niggas on the street and selling smack, and her son is killing people from selling tainted dope. And she killed a young black boy in order to basically cover for her own son in the context of this storyline.
Well, that's cool because, because of the struggle that women go through.
Man, look, at some point, the truth has to be what the truth is. And look, there's nothing symmetrical about a fight between a man and a woman. And a woman basically, and men don't, I swear to God, most men do not wish or desire to harm women. I swear to God, they don't. Like all this I Turner shit, and from what I understand, listening to Judge Joe Brown, who knew them, like Tina Turner was a cold piece of work herself.
She was a gorilla pimp.
She was
Tina
more
Turner
violent than her.
Estranged from all of her American family, even her blood relatives, even the side of her family that's not Ike's family. She's estranged from them, and a lot of them, her daughters or her family members question and challenge a lot of what she said about Ike. So she's estranged from her own people.
I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you this, Gigi. Every time you go to a domestic violence call, you look for various signs. In the back of your mind, you try to be as logical and concerning as possible because you're like, wait a minute, she's 5'4", he's 6'2". He outweighs her by 100 pounds. If he hits her, where's the marks? Where's the sign? That's why they changed a lot of these domestic violence laws. But in women's mind, if they hit you, they don't think it's domestic.
You all aren't old enough to remember, perhaps, but for those who do or may recall, you may recall Robin Givens talking about how abusive Mike Tyson was to her.
I remember that.
During this time, Mike Tyson was virtually killing men in the ring, like in the late 80s and early 90s. I mean, just the biggest, strongest men, Mike was folding them like a church chair, right? But he's so-called just so brutalizing Robin Givens. If Mike Tyson had hit that woman once in anger, he would have broken her neck.
I'm just thinking to myself, like, you're gonna try to be the prosecutor of this case of domestic violence. Robin Givens looking like she just planted a garden. No bruises, no hits. If I was the defense attorney, I would just bring all his greatest hits. Did she look like that? No. Case dismissed.
All right.
But here's the deal. What I don't want to do is move so far off the topic at hand to where we're not talking about what we've talked about ad nauseum. Okay. And look, the brother Megatron referenced Kimberly Crenshaw, okay, and her disagreement with there being programs put into place to attend to the specific needs of black males. Now they understand, like these women know and they understand that black women have unique problems. But it seems as if they can't fathom. They can't reconcile within their intellectualization, their musing, the idea that black men may have their own unique set of problems and that they have to be handled unilaterally, not in conjunction with black women. Because black women also have it in their minds that they need to solve their problems unilaterally. I mean, anytime there's a program, anytime there is a program set up and established either by the private or the public sector just for women, nobody has any issues with it. Nobody sees it as unjustifiable. But this is what I call the colonization of masculinization. These women are trying to terraform men to make them in their own image. This is going to work out badly in the long run because there is something that's going to push back against their idea of enculturation and nurturing. These people believe that society is nothing more than a reflection of socialization and education. This is what they think. And it goes back to their philosophical understanding. I mean, these people are post-structuralists. Many of them, not all of them.
So basically, this is a case of nurture versus nature, huh?
There's that chart you had that showed the education rates.
Yeah, I'll show it again.
Yeah. So there's a couple things. There's Tim Wise wrote a really good article about how the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action were white women, right? And the biggest things were jobs, access to education, and access to other civil programs. Before and, well, kind of at the same time, there was downward pressure to kind of get rid of industry through the passage of several acts that kind of limited the industries that most men at the time, and especially black men, were in. The Clean Water, Clean Air Act in the mid to late 70s. Like we talk about how the rivers in Ohio used to be on fire and now they weren't. Those kind of forced those industries to go abroad. And there's a good book that I think it's called Pivotal Decade. I can't remember the author. I want to say it's like Judy Stein. Let's say it's her name. Wrote about how that push downward from government forced business outward. And as those businesses got forced outward, yeah, like the late 70s, where you see that click at like 1980, where the men, you see the downward shift. That means that most of those jobs had finally siphoned out of the economy, but the women who pretty much had
update now.
The women who pretty much had a path through the new economy basically had a clearer way to go. And so that financialization that was pushing those industries out rewarded the business owners. At the same time, the men, you had to do something like demonize them. And so something like an intersectionality could be created to basically say that these men were X, Y, and Z, and that is why they are no longer a necessary component. And there's been other threats of it. Yeah, that's one of the articles I've read as well.
But this article in and of itself is indicative of a conundrum of sorts. And the reason I call it a conundrum is because clearly affirmative action was set aside primarily for black folks. I don't care if you're talking about black men or women. We knew that historically that black folks had suffered a range of injustices, racial based, not gender based, racially based discrimination that had a deleterious outcome for the families, the hordes of black folks, male or female. This is something it's an inescapable fact. It's an inconvenient truth of American history. Now, some people today want to say, well, that's just so far back in the past, it really doesn't matter anymore. Bullshit. It still matters.
Well, we know it matters. I mean, they've tried to rewrite history a number of times. JFK wrote that book, Nation of Immigrants, that tried to recast America as that, even though that's largely not true. Or, I mean, it's only part of the truth. They tried to recast the Statue of Liberty as being, bring us, you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry from afar. But you look at the feet, and there's the chains on the feet for, the liberation of the slaves.
These golden gals came in like the white comedian said, can't even remember his name right now, on the SNL skit, Bill Burr.
Bill Burr.
They came in and swung their Gucci booted feet over the fence of oppression. And they hijacked the civil rights movement. And they made all of the gains that black folks sacrificed themselves for, and even some white folks, they did everything they could to write themselves into the picture.
Okay, but Gigi, let's tell the whole story. They would not have been able to do that without support from a lot of black women in very prominent positions, very famous. Some of them we even read about in history books.
And they basically gave away the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah.
Only because they didn't want
to leave. You know, we're showing pictures here of Becky, and it's well and good, but let's not paint it as just being the evil white, fairy godmother or whatever the hell. It was a whole lot of black women, your Shirley Chisholms and all those folks involved in a lot of that stuff too.
Just because black men were getting something out of the game.
Well, look, that's like the brother who has the sports show. I can't remember his name. I'm like, names are not good for me right now. But that brother, man, had to be a couple of months ago on his television, on his YouTube channel, basically said,
Jason Whitlock.
Yeah, black women saw where they licked their finger, put it in the wind, and saw that the direction was going in the path of or on the trail of white women, and so that's where they went. I've done shows on this.
Were they just following the wind, or were they helping to create the wind? I don't know. I mean, when Sojourner Truth says 100 whatever years prior to that, ain't I a woman? That don't sound like somebody who or a group of women who were just concerned about following the wind. That sounds like women who were trying to make some wind.
Yeah, I get that, brother. I understand it. Look, this gender thing has, for the most part to me, been, let me just use street vernacular. This shit been capped from the beginning. And yeah, women had to undergo some fucked up shit. But men also undergo fucked up shit throughout the context of their lives. And the history of men is not just one, like, I'm your old guy, okay? There was a fucking Eddie Murphy skit a long time ago in SNL where he basically made himself up like a white guy. Do you remember that skit?
Yeah, and he got on the bus and the party. And
he got on the bus, and when the black people got off of the bus, all the white people on the bus started fucking partying, doing cocaine, drinking champagne, and everything. It was hilarious, okay? Funny.
That was a great skit.
Do women actually, like, of all races, colors, creeds, and nationalities, honestly believe that when all the women get off of the bus, that men break out the cocaine, the champagne, and start having a fucking party?
Yes.
Honestly, man, like, I'm just asking. Like, seriously, I want black women to actually answer the question instead of using insults and shit, and to come and just, have a real conversation or something. Like, look, do you think life is a party for us? Like, we're in collusion with each other, like, bros up, hoes down.
Gigi, I'm gonna honestly give you
like, really, man.
This is just off my Facebook, man. A lady made a comment that a man shouldn't need to cook, clean, and wash his own clothes. You know how many women was like, well, we should share. Well, he need to do his own stuff. Well, only but here's the crazy part. You had this one chick whose husband's a Marine. She allegedly. She's supposed to be pregnant with their 2-year-old child. I asked her this one question. I never said your role wasn't important, but is the burden of performance of taking care of the family, is it on you or him? Yeah, you might have an important role, but does that overtake him? Because if he doesn't work, you don't eat.
But that's not true anymore, though. So, because basically, they stuck themselves into the work world. But black women have always worked in one way or another. So that really doesn't apply to black women at all anyway. But I mean, like these white ladies, man, look. It got to the point, man. Did I show you the article that the brother Frimpong put on? He did a commentary about it, but like how they basically said we gonna put black women to work anyway. did I read? Do you remember me reading that to y'all?
Down in the
Probably a while
Carolinas.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's probably
black women to be put to work.
Yeah.
I'm about to find it right now. Negro women to be put to work. So ultimately, when black men had the conditions in which black women didn't have to work because the black men were out earning money for their families and creating some sort of functional, family situation, a stable family situation, the black women were like, I'm good with the work. I'm cool. I got work to do in the home. And that is real work. Okay? Like taking care of a household is real work, especially if somebody's actually dedicated to doing it and doing it well. Like a person to me that actually puts effort into doing some shit like that would be a woman who just doesn't come back and forth from home and comes home and then turns on fucking ratchet television. I'm talking about a woman who's like, okay, I'm going to enhance the aesthetic quality of the home. I'm planting flowers and shit. I got like the bushes looking on point. I'm taking the weeds out the garden. I got the meal cooked, and I ain't just slapping together hamburger helper. I'm like on some straight up, like I'm putting some effort and energy, like some Martha Stewart like energy into this shit.
You're asking too much at that point. They don't even want to do that.
But is it? But it's about the pride that you put into the role that you have.
But there's no pride anymore, and that's the point that I told her. I said, look. Back in the day, yeah, women used to work hard as shit in the house. When you had to cut the wood, you had to do actual strenuous shit. You had to wring clothes by hand and wash them by hand. You had to get the water from the well, boil the stuff up to make food or to bathe. Even if you have a housewife today, technology took away 90% of the struggle she had back then.
One of the most shocking things I saw as a child was my grandmother chopping a chicken's head off. Yeah. And that's enough. I don't think I've seen anyone can do anything like that in this generation. But I have seen people have to get their Mercedes taken in.
And see, this is the only thing that I get about it. I'm not against women getting education or working, but I'll be damned, and I certainly be damned. You're going to talk about like we're not doing any of the heavy lifting. You literally betrayed us. You literally told us that we ain't worth it, but you go around like a concave glass and circumvent black men getting jobs and education that is needed to survive, and have the audacity to say, I can't find men on my level. These niggas ain't shit.
And there you have it. There you have it. I mean, and many of y'all have made statements that the word bomb worthy, okay? So let me just say that. But that's the rub right there, bro. Like, wait a minute. You mean to tell me you want a man that has X, Y, and Z, but you do everything that you can to prevent men as a class, especially black men. You prevent us, you thwart and stymie every effort we make in order to try to remedy the situation because it don't include y'all. It's got to include you in some sort of way. Otherwise, it's unequal, it's unjust, and it's unfair. Okay? Now, that shit might apply to white men, but it damn sure don't apply to black men. It just doesn't. But here we go with this nonsense, this bullshit. But you want us to be all this for you. You still want us to have these traditional values towards you, but you have no values, no fidelity to us. In fact, you're tired, you're bored. I can't do this anymore. This is too much. This is like, you're requiring so much of me.
Like, JJ, I'm gonna tell you what it was. And I did not understand the stark contrast for modern women compared to our mothers. And I'm looking, and it took me till I was bedridden with COVID. And I'm like, I'm noticing my mother is in my house, nice size 3 to 4 bedroom house, cleaning up, not uttering a word. Even if she didn't want to do it, she didn't, or didn't had a complaint, she didn't utter it. While I'm sick, I'm just thinking to myself, if I'd have got a damn woman here, my age, I'd have been dead. No pride, no acknowledgement of my pain, nothing. And I'm just thinking, just like that post on Facebook, I notice you never speak up against a man cutting your grass, against a man protecting the house, a man bringing home the bacon. But when it's time for you to assume your duties, there's a problem. Oh, I'm not his mother. I'm not a slave. There is no pride anymore. It's just a bunch of excuses.
I'm done with it, dude. Like, all I'm saying is, man, once women step into the masculine, they can only go so far with it. They ain't gonna go all the way with it. Right now, like it's that guru. I don't know what his name is. Some Indian dude. Like, I don't know what his name is, man. But like, he's got a show talking about women being masculine. That's how he says masculine. Like, women have entered into the world as masculine agents because they felt as if something was occurring in the male world that they weren't able to have. Like, there was something missing in their world, and they had to inject themselves in the male world in order to find what they had been missing there in the feminine or the female world. And then they say, well, there's gender fluidity. So, I mean, all of this is an excuse for them being able to terraform the masculine world and to say that it's unfair to men to operate apart from women. Anything that men do that women are not involved in is something that's nefarious and something that is sinister and oppressive, and the potential to collude to, put women back, 100, 200 years from now, to set them back.
Well, and that's why I say you're going to have to eventually sue these women, sue these groups, sue their supporters for the right for men to have those spaces, to have those schools, to have the not-for-profits geared specifically or primarily for Black boys. You're going to have to sue them for the right to have those organizations. Otherwise, any attempt you make at all, any meaningful attempt you make at all, whether it's a school or not-for-profit, a charity, any sort of government-related activity geared specifically towards helping boys, especially Black boys, they already have the template for attacking. And it's all, and because it has been historically successful, as you guys present, then they know exactly what to do. And the usual suspects, the Crenshaw, Williams Crenshaw types, they're already on speed dial. Whenever you try to do any of that, they already have they probably already have the memos already pre-written for anything you attempt to do. So they're ready. The problem is we're not ready to disable their ability to do that. That's the problem.
Well, see, this I'm gonna show you something else, and then I swear to God, I'm through showing y'all anything in terms of in terms of putting stuff on the screen. But there's a woman by the name of Ann Dummett, right? And I even read this. That racism and sexism is a false analogy, a false equivalency. But they've made it an equivalency. Now they've put them together and made them a double disability, like a double, like a double whammy, a double form of oppression. There's no privileges associated with womanhood only negative connotations and descriptions. That's it. There's nothing positive about masculinity. It's just toxic and intrinsically toxic and oppressive. Now, this is ridiculous to me, but this is where we're going with this. Now, Ann Dummett basically came out and said, and I'm gonna show it to you. I can show you better than I can tell you. Let me show you. Go to the window. Racism and sexism. So, I mean, I can't read it all, but racism and sexism are false analogy, and this is a white woman in Britain, because basically, and the article was written when? In 75, 4 years after I was born. So this article is 45 years old. Okay? This is what she says. So anyone who cares about getting rid of racism in Britain is accustomed to massive difficulty. So it's hard to do it. And she talking about Britain. We ain't talking about the US. Okay? But anyway, now we have the Women's Live movement after she got through talking about like the deleterious effects of racism. Women's Live, which arguably this movement is the most successful social movement in the world. Okay? Women's Lib is a vague and disputed term. It is more usual to hear of the women's movement now in this country. This includes some formal organizations, some informal groups, and some individuals, all in some way or another concerned with women's rights. These groups and individuals vary in beliefs and in action. Some are old established reforming organizations, some new community action groups, and so on. Their work often overlaps, but there is a marked difference, all the same, between the new ideology of liberation and the old ideology of equal rights for women. The difference is in mood and style, rather than in a set program. The new mood and style can conveniently be called anti-sexism. Anti-sexism is putting together the fight for more nursery schools, for getting men to look after the children, campaigning for easy abortion as well as for equal pay, asking for picture books in which little girls play with trains and mothers are depicted following interesting professions like medicine and the law. Anti-sexism is also claiming it is the same kind of fight as anti-racism. It is not. And I agree with her here, man. It is not the same. Millions and millions and millions of people were not carted over in ships to America in order to perform women's labor. Them motherfucking, man, them bitches came over here voluntarily, bruh.
Can you say that again for the Negroes in the back who didn't hear you?
Them bitches came over here voluntarily, bruh.
And all it takes is a good history book to find out.
They came over here for opportunity. They came over here with their husbands. They came over here with their brothers. They weren't forced to come here. Now, maybe some of them came over as indentured servants. Some of them, more than likely they did. Now, have women been forced to do shit that they didn't want to do? Of course. But the same is for men. It ain't like men just, every man has been absolutely free of oppression and servitude and bondage throughout the entirety of history and always had a woman there to do every fucking little trifling thing that he wanted. This is it's an aberration. It's a mischaracterization of history and the relationship that has existed between men and women through millennia. It's absurd. But this is taken to be the honest to God's gospel right now. This is like Luke, Mark, John, or Matthew. This is like 1st and 2nd Timothy. Okay? And look, she goes on to say, anti-sexism has in fact imitated much of the language of anti-racism, transferring it unadapted in some cases, for example, where women are referred to as a minority, which they observably are not. They outlive men and they have more numbers than men. Now, if a group is oppressed, the first thing you do is you fucking kill them. Am I right or wrong?
Well, they definitely don't get to live as long as the people in the higher position. That's for damn sure.
We're talking about women in general, though. Women
they got longer
outlive
lifespans.
men, and there are more women in the world than there are men.
By a billion.
These are facts. Like
You know what's really
all
sad?
I'm saying, but the only point I just tried to make was this. If you really are trying to oppress a group of people, what you're going to do is to work to reduce their numbers. This is how genocide works. They're making it seem as if there's acts of genocide being put forth exclusively on them because they have uteri.
Well, I mean, and there's no proof of that. There's no actual evidence of that. So, that's why I said at some point, you take this all to court and you present in legal documents where all the lies are in all the policy that support what they're doing. Like on the point of intersectionality, for example. Now, every year, this is a startling fact that most of us might be unfamiliar with. But every year, there are a few more Black males born than there are Black females. The split is somewhere in the range of about 55.5% male, 49.5% female. But yet, we all know there are a million more Black females than there are Black men. So if there is a quote genocide occurring amongst Black people, it's occurring amongst Black men. But yet we have intersectionality arguing that Black females are the most oppressed people. When the actual empirical evidence is that the life of a Black male or African American male is much more precarious than that of an African American female statistically.
But see,
Who's more
we
protected?
we never would have gotten to this point if it weren't for these women basically asserting that they're the most oppressed. And
Right.
It was done out of like, okay, women wanting to vote, okay, you can vote, motherfucker. Okay, vote, goddammit. Vote. Now, personally, look, here's my opinion. Like, if you look at the annals of history, you'll see how things go and what nations do and what kings are supposed to do and what they've been urged to do, not just by men, but the whole fucking nation, even women. They're supposed to go out and conquer for the benefit of the nation. Now, at least that's Western society. You write me if I'm wrong. Like, you tell me what king from France, Norway, Poland, Russia, Germany wasn't compelled by its tribal culture to go out and to maneuver throughout the world in a dominant way through violence and force.
That's just human nature anyway. If I don't have, if I can't grow, if I can't build, I take.
But I mean, look, all I'm saying is this has been the predominant mode throughout history. And the men who actually went out and conquered the shit were nobles or considered to be nobles, right? They're part of royal families. That was the first hegemonic, hierarchical structure that was put into place millennia ago. Some people are nobles, some are not. Some are royal chieftains, some people are peasants, vassals, lieges, and bondsmen. Am I missing something about this? Like, that's what I learned from Western history, Eastern history, or Oriental history, even African history. And I also know that there were some women who were members of the fucking nobility. and who had their fucking ears in their sons' mouths, like Cersei Lannister, pulling their sons here and there, making them do shit. And even in the Muslim world, where you have women, for the most part, running the harem, all up in their son's ear, determining what's best for the nation and what's best for her son. But we act like this shit didn't occur in history. Like it was just a history of women against men. All this shit is the energy. They have basically transferred the energy of the civil rights movement away from race, made race unimportant, and put it all within the framework of gender. All intersectionality does is comes along and allows black women to take that energy and use it for their own interest. Against black men.
You know, I wouldn't have a problem if they used all the benefits they got to even push the kids forward. But they are so selfish. They claim, which is not true, of course, they're the most educated. Wouldn't you have pride of educating your sons?
Man, look, some of these women are educating their sons. I mean, you know, like my mother was a single black mother, man. She educated me. However, this is the rub with this shit, right? Some of these women don't give a fuck about their sons because they never had like a man around.
Mm-hmm.
And the daddies they did have, like, man, these women are neutering men. And they're given license to do so within the context of Western culture, and men are at the top of the list in this shit. They are allowing this to happen in order to mitigate men being healthy and strong to pose a fucking threat to their asses. That's how I see this shit.
I think it's more simple than what we're saying. I think the majority of FBA females hate their sons. I think all evidence of what they do, everything from how they educate them, what they do in terms of taking care of them or lack of taking care of their health, their nutrition, certainly protecting them and preventing them becoming assumed by the criminal justice system. I mean, everything about, and worst of all, which actually leads to all the other issues, taking them away from their fathers. So everything they do in the majority, not all, certainly not all, but everything black women do in the majority, foundational black Americans, females do in this country, suggests or supports a valid argument that they hate their sons. They may not be conscious of it. They may actually think consciously, they might actually consciously believe they love their sons. But when you look at their actions and you look at what happens to most of their sons, you'd have to rationally conclude that they hate their sons, the majority.
Well, I ain't gonna say a lot of them subconsciously have like an aversion towards men. I've seen it play out. I've seen this play out. You know, I'm not gonna say, you know, I don't know if hate. I think that these women, first of all, have not been trained, at least within the last 60 to 70 years, to have any appreciation for men what the fuck soever. This is the age of misandry. This is the great age of misandry. And don't you love living in this world? Don't you just love it?
Okay, but correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't misandry mean hatred of men and males?
It does. I'm agreeing to the point. Look, I've done shows about this. The martiality has been sapped away from black women, man. Like even supporting any martiality amongst black, you see it in individual preferences for men who are thugs and shit like that. But like collectively, like the Blackistan argument, they don't want no Blackistan. The Marcus Garvey shit, they don't want that. They rejected it after the civil rights movement. Black women, the Combahee River Collective was like, we shitting on black nationalism. Because it's chauvinistic. It's regressive. Even though in the article, like I did a show on that shit where I read through the Combahee River Collective and I read side by side what the nationalist literature that they quoted actually said. Basically, you know, the nationalist literature was like, look, black men are gold, black women are silver. It's not a matter of who's the best, who's more important. They're both equally important, but they have different functions and roles to play in nation building. Yeah, the man should be the leader of the household insofar as the household is under threat. Doesn't mean that he dictates with an iron hand, but it does mean, like, can you imagine being with a woman who's so recalcitrant, you know danger is lurking, and you say, let's go. But this motherfucker want to be on some gender shit, and she like, I'm leaving when I get ready. And the whole place gets shot up and her ass filled with holes, and you get filled with holes too, because her ass wouldn't leave.
I've been in situations like that. Not shot, of course, but
you get what I'm saying. Like, your spidey senses is going off, but this motherfucker on some, you can't tell me what to do shit just because you can't tell me what to do shit is the shit to do now.
That's why I always said, why protect them? The main reason men protect women is to literally protect them from themselves.
Man, look, all I can say is, like, I was dating this chick, right? I told her, I say, and she was a single mother, you know what I'm saying? She had a daughter. I say, man, your daughter playing the motherfucking music too loud. We in an apartment complex. I say, hey, look, that music is too loud. Tell her to turn it down. Well, you're just being, I say, okay. Okay. The next thing you know, the police at the door. She want me to go see what the fuck it is. Why are the police here? I say, you take your mannish ass up there and fucking see what it is. Because I told you what the fuck it was. I said the music was too goddamn loud. But instead of just listening to what I got to say, you decided that you gonna be the run, you gonna be the motherfucker who run it. Now you go fucking run the problem. Then it became an issue where you didn't want to protect. Nah, motherfucker, I gave you the protection when I told you to turn the fucking music down. Tell your daughter, man, to turn the music down. Go in there and tell her to turn the shit down. Because if I go in there and tell her to turn it down, she gonna act like I'm treating her like a stepchild. You go in there and tell her to turn it down. I don't want to time, nigga. Okay, then you go fucking handle the police then. This is the sort of shit men gotta deal with nowadays. Because you can't tell a motherfucker nothing. Anything you tell a woman right now is going to be perceived as regressive, especially if it's a fucking ultimatum or a dictatum. Even if it's for the safety of the group. But at the end of the day, if a catastrophe is about to pop off, you're going to be looked at to be the problem solver, not her. And they know this shit. They already fucking implicitly understand this, bruh. Ain't no question about it, bruh. It's all good when everything is all hunky-dory, but when the shit hits the fan and the rubber meets the road, they gonna be asking your ass, what can you do to get us out of this? Die hard Bruce Willis. Come rescue the motherfucking woman from the castle. Now,
I would quote another famous 80s movie, sadly, in reference, the Russian made in reference to Apollo. If she dies, she dies.
Man, hey, if she dies, she dies. That's crazy, man. But see, look, all I'm saying is, man, look, I said this a long time ago too. Even a man, let's say, for example, Faulkner is out and he's hired as a grunt to protect a woman. A rapper, whatever the fuck, right? It could be a male rapper. There's a certain amount of trust that the client has to have for him to be able to do his job. If the motherfucker say move, if Faulkner says move, it's time to move. It's not that, okay, well, I'm not a boss. You're not the boss of me. You can't tell me what to do. Like, you hired me to keep you safe, motherfucker. Right?
You're quoting the first scene between Whitney Houston and Kevin Costner in the movie Bodyguard.
Man. I mean, like, okay, don't go out there by yourself. I'm going out there anyway. Okay. Now I got to rescue you from something more. Now I got to get you out of quicksand as opposed to getting you around the quicksand. Now I got to work 3 to 4 times as hard in order to keep you safe than necessary. All because you are considering yourself to be exercising radical agency. This is what they literally call this shit. Well, black men don't like black women or any other woman for that matter. They don't like our radical agency. All we're saying is the radical agency that you're exemplifying is only possible in a safe environment. And the safe environment is not stable continuously, forever. There are going to be tests, there are going to be periods where the world is as precarious as it is stable. And when that shit occurs, you're not going to be able to exercise your radical agency. Nobody is. You're going to have to take some fucking orders. Like, these people are sold on white enlightenment liberalism so much so that it's becoming sickening to me. And I understand enlightenment liberalism, I get it, but like, negative liberty is not the only kind of liberty that exists. And in fact, it doesn't exist at all. Like, you go to work, where's your fucking enlightenment liberalism? Where is it then? Because I bet you there's a hierarchy there. And you're gonna be told that you have to perform tasks according to a certain criteria that you didn't develop yourself. I guarantee that shit. I don't care who you are, unless you're the CEO or the COO. Unless you Dame Dash or some shit like that. You're your own boss. So you're going to be listening to some fucking orders. Somebody's going to...
Sorry, I want to add something here because I see a path where you're going here to bring it back to the school thing. So a bunch of my friends, right? Most of us middle class, working class guys, and a lot of them kind of figured out from having this environment how they wanted to see their future. And I'll give the best cases. One of my friends was he's a tall guy, kind of athletic, but not incredibly so. But he knew he would get scouted for playing basketball because he's 6'7", 6'8", and he wasn't great, but he was good enough to get into college. He knew he was good enough to play at D3, D2 school, paid for college, right? And then he knew he wasn't going to make it to the NBA, but he thought if he could play at in Europe or South America or Russia, he could save up and pay for graduate school. And he did those things. And I think his dad was working at a glass foundry, and mother was a part-time administrator, part-time bookkeeper. He wound up making enough money playing basketball overseas to pay for his MA or his MS in medical school. And he's just now turning like 32, 33. And he's paid for medical school outright by making good plans and having parents who kind of believed in him at the right time. But he had the agency and the environment to push himself in that direction. So I think one thing I'd like to say is that any opportunity that offers you to have agency, to live a first-class life in a first-class country, or at least a developed country, all opportunities should be made available. There's plenty of them for lower income people, for people in the middle, but I think not addressing them and the fact that not a lot of men have control or not a lot of women want to send their children away is a problem. And I've seen that in my own life and my family. And I think that is what could be a problem for a lot of Black boys who have the capability but don't have the opportunity. Because I've seen what it's like in a third world country where people want the opportunity, and they don't have that, and they have the capability. So I think by sacrificing a bunch of these boys, by not even giving them either, or giving them the opportunity, we're doing them a disservice that is an injustice.
Well,
And
that's
look,
another hazard of the gynocracy. That when
see,
you
look,
have females dominating a society and a community, you're going to have this overprotective clinging to of the children, including and especially the boys. If there were more men-led households amongst us, you'd have more rational decision making in regards to what you illustrate, Jules.
That might be possible. I'd rather see more people brave enough to just say, like, whoever has the children should be brave enough to say that I need my children to do the best possible. And that means investing up front, and then on the back end being able to help them launch.
see, you know, like the difference between us, like, and the women in our culture. See, women in our culture basically coddle boys, you know, and then expect for them to turn into these motherfucking soldiers and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, or they just neglect the boys altogether in their development because they don't know how to attend to their own development. I hate to say it, like, I mean, you know, these women are so westernized and so caught in the hamster wheel, they're not even thinking like progressively. And the tragedy of it all is that they're among the most educated. They should know what the fuck to do. They should have the intellectual agency to understand, but this is the difference between looking at education as a tool or perceiving education as something that is intrinsically valuable. So there's different ways of looking at education. My guess is that most of these people going to, even black men, black women, whatever the case may be, white men, white women, they're going to college because they feel as if it's requisite for them to get a good job. They're not there for the education in and of itself. They're there for the carrot dangling from the edge of the stick. There's nothing pleasurable about going to classes, listening to lectures, just learning. That's some shit that like is boring and, you know, terribly, you know, like abstruse and, you know, painful. These people just want a job. So therefore, they're not really actually learning what they could be learning at these institutions, man. I teach these motherfuckers, man. I know where their heads are, bruh. I ain't even read that shit, man. Yeah, huh? Like, you paying for this, man. You paying for this shit.
But
What you mean you don't know it? And that's the tragedy. So you got all these people going to school, right? Who don't perceive it as a blessing, like a privilege to be able to go. It's just something they doing because, you know, I got to do it to get a good job. And they don't really learn shit there. And most of these women are graduating with psychology degrees, man. They should know the psychology of the enemy because they in the belly of the beast learning the enemy's thought process and their theories about thinking and cognition. They should know what they're thinking. And be trying to overthrow these motherfuckers to some degree or put a monkey wrench in their program so that we can thrive. They should understand, you know, the difference between men and women and masculine and feminine energy and what men are capable of and what women are. They're educated. They should know this shit. Then they should be looking at history and looking at the various trials and tribulations of people throughout time. Not through just an ideological lens developed within the context of the fucking middle of the 20th century. Because there's many millennia of history to study. Which period? I mean, you want to go back to the Victorian era, the Enlightenment era, the medieval period, classical antiquity? It's a lot of shit to study.
You know, I've known many, many of the most highly educated Black women. I don't recall ever knowing a black woman who had the approach to education you described. Not ever. I think in fact, in the popular media, so to speak, I think the only woman I've seen who I believe might have had that approach to education, at least in the popular, uh, those that we know collectively. The only black woman, I think, who probably had that particular perspective and understanding of education was Condoleezza Rice. I think she's the only one. And I think if you look at the fact that she studied Russian history and language and all that, so she appeared to have a perspective of education beyond just I'm just because Condoleezza was a brilliant woman. She could have just I'm just going to go to medical school and make a lot of money, or I'm just going to go to law school and make a lot of money, or whatever. So, but she took a different approach to her education, and obviously it paid off, given uh, the road that she was able to travel and the associations. I mean, sitting at the feet of the Henry Kissingers of the world, I guess, for Christ's sake. But she's the only black woman I've ever seen that appeared to have the approach to study and scholarship in the public discourse that would appear to have modeled what you described. Maybe Susan Rice, I'm not sure, but I would say definitely Condoleezza Rice.
Well, I'm not saying that there aren't any women that like to study. Okay, like I mean, like I'm not gonna go that far because I don't think
I'm
it's
not
accurate.
don't
But what I
misunderstand.
am saying is, as a collective, if it's the case, let me put the numbers back up on this motherfucker so you can see it. Let me go back up and put the numbers back up. Okay, here I am. I gotta go share the page again. Stop sharing that window. Share the other window. Damn, I wish I was in OBS right now, but it is what it is. I could be in OBS, but I'm just doing it like this for now because I've been having these issues. Got issues. But anyway, if it's the case, put up the chart again, since y'all like charts. If they got that many black women getting these advanced degrees, matriculating into college and all of this, and mostly in the humanities. See, let me tell you something, right? See, the Greeks separated knowledge into different kinds, and I ain't trying to kiss the Greeks' ass. I'm just talking about like different kinds of knowledge, okay? You got episteme, right, which is theoretical knowledge. You have techne, which is technical knowledge. And then you have phronesis, which is common, it's like practical wisdom. Now, in this culture, man, I can tell you, there is not even a word for phronesis. You heard of epistemology and technology. The study of techne and the study of theory. We have an abundance of that shit. But like the study of practical wisdom, who does that here? Like the ancient Orients do it. The Orientals do it. They call it the Tao and, studying the way and, learning practices through habituation and shit like that. Like they have that understanding. We don't have it. And it's become even more pronounced since, especially in Western culture, but it's always been there to some degree. But like, the art of learning some shit through habit and practice and tradition is gone. It's every motherfucker for their damn self doing absolutely whatever the fuck their hedons tell them to do.
Just to clarify, I was not making the argument that there aren't a significant number of black women who aren't very intelligent, well educated, etc. What I was focusing on was the notion of their objective being beyond just positioning themselves for employment.
Exactly. And I agree.
And I say there are very few black women that I've witnessed who appear to have that particular approach to their post high school education.
Well, I would say that the bulk of people who go into higher. Well, it's different when you get to graduate school and shit like that. There's a different kind of spirit, okay? But like even amongst these people with these advanced degrees, a lot of them do it because they feel like they have to do it in order to get a title so they can, advance in their jobs.
Yeah,
like,
or a teaching position, or
exactly,
or a professorship. Yeah.
Like as far as I'm concerned, man, a lot of these people, man, I ain't gonna say they dumb as a box of rocks, but they can't see the forest for the trees. They get caught up in minutia. You got to be able to put the puzzle together and look at it from a panoramic perspective. These people are looking at a pixel and thinking they got the whole fucking movie figured out. Like myopia is a motherfucker, but at the end of the day, bruh, if you got the bulk of these women that are learning the humanities, the bulk of them, what are you taking away from the humanities? What are you taking away from it? And this is the difference, man. Like, if women really actually want their sons to become martial, and that, look, you can't say that if you're black in the United States, you have no reason to be on guard. I just had a fucking white supremacist come here calling black men niggas. Did I not? So you gotta be on guard.
Green
Hey,
Gorilla.
bro, you have to be on point, because if one of these motherfuckers come to me with that bullshit, they better be posse the fuck up. Because I'll take a motherfucking cross, swastika wearing motherfucking, slap a goddamn bottle upside his fucking head and laugh as the blood drips off his fucking, on the sidewalk. Now, if you don't fuck with me, I ain't gonna fuck with you. But when you come to me with some bullshit, you better be prepared to take it to its logical fucking conclusion. Now, I give a pass to some Negroes for some shit, talking slick and greasy, but I'm not giving no white boy no permission to come call me no N-word.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm gonna fuck your ass up. You come to me with that bullshit, I'm gonna knock some motherfucking teeth out your mouth. I'm not gonna play with you. I'm not gonna act mad or angry for real. I am angry about it. You know what I'm saying? But like, I wanna cause some harm to your motherfucking ass. I wanna see you hurt. I ain't gonna lie about it. I'm not gonna equivocate about that bullshit. Because you know the history of the legacy of that shit. So if you come to me with some motherfucking bizarro world, white supremacist shit, I'm gonna try to fuck your ass up. Period. I'm not gonna play no games and equivocate with this bullshit. I wanna see some harm come to your fucking ass. And as much radical shit these women talking about, bruh, about black this, black that, and women this and all that shit. Look, man, you don't see the historical struggle between people from different ethnic groups, racial groups, and all this shit? You want to make this about some women shit now? Because some white lady said something? I ain't trying to be ignorant, but come on now. Like the Spartan women, you know what they did to them boys, man? When they were 7 years of age, they had to get out their mama house, man. You ain't your mama's son no more. All that shit is over with. That's done. A Spartan boy? Running around doing what his mama telling him? No, fuck that. That you can call the Greeks whatever you want to call them. But see, we don't have a rites of passage in the black community in order to usher in a boy into manhood. That's one of the problems. That's why you need a boarding school and you need men at least to teach men how to be a man. Women come out the fucking vagina knowing as soon as they get a baby coming out of the vagina, they naturally and instinctively know what to do as a woman. Men don't have that luxury. It's a difference. Ain't no rites of passage. There's no qualifications or criteria for what actually establishes you as a man. That's why you got so many different articulations of what it is. And it's all based upon performance. Because this society is nothing but some performative bullshit. I hate to say it, this is Western culture in general. You're 100 different things everywhere you go. You're not that thing. You're not the authentic, genuine article of nothing. You go home, you're one thing. You go to work, you're another thing. You go to your church, you're another thing. These, like, people from other cultures never have had all of these, like, split ass identities. A fucking shaman in a Native American tribe is not wearing many different hats in the culture and shit. He doesn't have I don't want to do this anymore. Oh, it's oppressive being a shaman. I want to be, huh? It's all over the place. This is going to kill Western culture because there is no identity in it, and there's no believability about it. You don't become anything. You just become a bundle of identities and what you could be and satisfaction from one second to the next. There's no fidelity to duty or role playing or providing a function to the society or to the community. It's everybody out here for their goddamn self. And this is ideologically, this comes from the Enlightenment. It's subjectivity. That's what they call it. I think it's a flaw. And many white people have opposed it. Like, what, I get what you're saying. This is a pushback against oppression of white men. So they came up with these Enlightenment ideals and shit like that, which most white men who were thinking men, some were into it, but like most men were like, this is all cap to begin with. Rights and shit like that? Like, what the fuck do you mean rights? The first right was divine right, the divine right of kings. So when you even use the language of rights, you have to understand where it comes from. But, I'm on my soapbox right now, man. I'm just, look, I got to back off, man. Like, all I wanted to do was say this. In terms of like black boys and education, like education is more, first of all, than performing well on standardized tests. The first thing is we're not educated to be persons, to fulfill any role that is of any substance to anything. In any institution that we enter into, hardly. I ain't gonna say there's none, there's not beacons of light, anywhere. But I mean, the vast majority of us, man, are left trying to carve out an identity alone, and most of it is some bullshit.
If I may slightly disagree, I do think we're socialized to perform one particular role, although it's defining the terms of it can vary. But I do think that men, particularly and especially black men, are socialized to be the lackeys of females. I do think we're socialized to be that. Now how we do that may vary. The specific details of what sort of simp or sucker we are for females, that may vary. We may be the concute, we may be the dick, we may be the wallet, we may be the bodyguard, or some combination of those, or the mechanic or whatever. But I do think we are socialized in general to be the lackeys of females. I think that is our role today.
Yeah, I will agree with that somewhat. But it ain't. I'll go so far as to say this. In this culture, there still is, for men, this norm of chivalry, and this attitude.
Chivalry is dead, right?
Of course, but I mean, but it still exists because it's a biological imperative.
No, it exists in the law, It's in our law. It's in our courts. It's in the child support orders. It's in the divorce decree and declaration of the splitting of assets. It's in how much time you get for committing the same crime that she could versus the time she gets for committing the same crime. There's chivalry all over the damn place.
And see, that's
It's
the
just of
issue.
no benefit at all to men.
And that's the issue. That's the issue. You can't have chivalry and the vestiges of coverture alongside a push for radical equality. That shit has to be discarded. But the first thing you're going to have to do is to discard your own evolutionary biology. Now, it works if women are willing to give something back. But we've made the conditions such that women don't have to provide anything back anymore. Like, these women are just out here using Negroes, man. And they think that's a natural, they really believe that this is a natural way to maneuver throughout the world. And it's going to leave them unscathed. And it's going to leave the generations of their progeny unscathed.
Maybe in America, but outside here, shit, let them try that shit in some third world countries. It'd be like the Taliban all over again. Ditches and head thrown with rocks.
But, you know, look, all I can say is, man, you know, the education of black boys has to be progressive to make them strong, to make them turn into what they actually are, not into what other people want them to be. They're like, I understand that, you know, women got this idea that they've been oppressed and they, you know, been repressed and, you know, they haven't been given the opportunity to do what men have done. They want to see if they can do it. Okay, all right, go ahead and try it. Now, how long do you want to continue with this fucking social experiment? There's some shit that you're good at and some shit that men are good at. That's why Serena Williams can't fucking beat a low-tiered, you know, tennis player that's a male. That's why you got professional women's soccer teams that can't be boys' high school teams. Now, I'm not saying that, you know.
You got the rainbow types destroying black female sporting events.
Man, look, you know, all I can say is, man, when you don't know who you are, you can be made into anything.
Mingo.
You can be shaped.
Bingo.
You can be shaped. You can be shaped and molded into anything.
That's what Carter Woods said. Once the mind's gone, that's it. You're going to have to create that back door. I mean, you're going to be molded in yourself to be something that you're not because you have no identity. Or stripped from you centuries ago in this soil.
So, you know, all I can say is, man, you know, we work, man. We try to do the best we can. But when it comes to our education, really, to be perfectly honest, there's such a dearth of black men who are teachers that, you know, we for the most part, we imposing this shit on ourselves because we're not there in the educative capacity.
Can I ask?
We got white women. We got white women teaching us, man. So go ahead, man. I'm gonna let y'all close it out, man, because I'm almost at 3 hour mark. I'm hungry as hell.
I want to ask Jules a question, if I may. Jules, you're in your like early to mid 30s, right?
Mid 30s, yeah.
Mid 30s, and you're unmarried, no kids.
Correct.
So you've been, you know, I mean, you attended boarding school, and apparently you graduated from a top tier college. So, I mean, you have good breeding, at least on some levels. Would you agree? I know that's a
it's a loaded term, but sure.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So I find that interesting that you have not married and had a family and whatever, I mean, you have a background and presumably associations that would offer opportunities, or presumably would offer opportunities for you to do that productively. How would you describe, or what would you describe, to the extent you're willing to share, has been the issue there?
Huh. Well, I live in a city that's pretty expensive. Not the most. It's not like the top 1, 2, 3, but it's pretty expensive. And I've worked a while to get my career where I want it. So I'm pretty comfortable. Like, I have all the things that you need as a, single man, home, car, savings, all that stuff. But I have a lot more freedom at my point where, got the masters, got the certifications, and working on more. And I'm at the point where I'm more comfortable. And it never frightened me to want to get married earlier, even though I know a lot of my friends and a lot of my classmates and some of my coworkers definitely did. But I figured if by the age of 40, 45, if it didn't happen by that point, then I'd be a lot more concerned. I've known, so half my family is American, from South, from, like American, the American Negro, right? And the other half is Caribbean.
You mean like down south?
Yeah, from the
Oh, and
Carolinas.
that one's from the upper parts of Caribbean. Okay.
And then the other half is from the Caribbean. And then both sides, outside of the past Gen X and boomers, most of the time it's been an older man with a younger woman. And that's how I always imagined it would be. I'm 35. I'd probably follow that Nation of Islam formula of, half your age plus 7. So, my wife is probably just now getting out of undergrad or graduate school.
Okay. So you have a plan. It's not now. Would you say there is a good pipeline for your selecting a proper wife that fits the age criteria you just described? I mean, do you foresee that being an issue, or do you think, based on your connections, your relationships, you will be able to, not easily but relatively easily, obtain the type of wife that you need, need when you're ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
from my alumni pool, yes, that's one. Both high school and college, like a lot of those guys married women. Like it would shock you the number of weddings I went to before the age of 30. And
Yeah.
that it was just
especially
like, boom,
the white ones, especially them. Yeah.
you have white and mixed heritage.
Yeah.
Mixed heritage would be like the two, like black weddings. And I'd say like my group of like, I guess compatriots are roughly the same, like 50-50. And it was just like every summer, every season was basically a wedding. So I have a pipeline. I just have not fully said, all right, mission in. At this point, I'm actually waiting for the housing market to cool off or settle down a little bit, and trying to make a pivot out of a townhouse and into something with a little more land.
So amongst the men that who have married or maybe married earlier, do they appear to be, amongst your peers, those you may have attended border school or college or whatever, or both, do they appear to be in productive marriages? I mean, you don't know if anybody's happy, but does this, on the surface, do they appear to be in productive marriages?
Yeah. I've only had, let's say, one person who had to spend the night outside of the house because of a bad fight. And that's out of, let's say, 30 couples. The average.
That's a remarkable statistic.
Yeah. And I mean, I have I have a few people who've done private arrangements where they've done not a state sanctioned marriage, but they've drawn up contracts and they've basically said that they're running a business. They'll have.
Now, are they mostly white or non-white, or?
It's a mix. So let's say half are white.
No. Okay.
Another quarter are mixed heritage, like Black and Latina, Black and white, Black and those would be the main two. And then the remainder are Black soul. Like, you could have
Okay.
like somebody who's like Caribbean with someone who's from Georgia, or
So it's either
people
white,
from the States.
Black, or Black and other.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Now, is there a fair number? Is that amongst all the people who are married? Do you know roughly what percentage of them would have these non-state sanctioned arrangements?
Those would be mostly the white ones, just because they
No, I
are
mean
looking
amongst
at
the
business.
population of all the people who are married, of all types of marriage, what subset of that, or what percentage of that population of people who are married in any format are off the state sanction or not state sanctioned? What
Private
percentage
weddings?
do you think?
Yeah, I know 3 couples that are white that are not doing like a state sanctioned marriage. They're basically like,
No,
they like each
maybe
other.
you don't understand my question. I'm just saying, let's say 100 people who are married, right?
Okay.
What number of that 100, or what 100 couples who are married, what number of that 100 would be non-state sanctioned marriage of that 100? Just as a percentage.
Like a per capita?
Yeah.
Let's say out of 100, 5
Yeah.
10, 5 to 10.
Oh, so it's only 5 or 10 of 100. It's not a whole.
It's not overwhelming. Like most of them are
they
state
get the
sanctioned,
marriage license, that whole deal.
Correct.
Okay. Very interesting. It's very interesting. You make a very valid point, one to consider, with respect to how you're going to boarding school, meeting people of certain backgrounds, both male and female. I'm sure taking that on to college with you and developing those relationships over time, and how those relationships will not only benefit you obviously economically in terms of employment opportunities, but also, just maybe even more important, the likelihood or the pipeline of being able to get a viable mate. Because the vast majority of us Black men, we don't have that particular kind of program set up.
Yeah, your network is going to be a lot different. Like I'll put it, so high school was a lot different, and I had to be socialized to be more independent. Like I had a lot of structure around me. That was fine. But I remember when I went to college, there was a program over the summer for students who had not been acclimated to something like this, and it was for students of color. So they wanted to basically jam in what I had for 4 years into one summer. And I went through it, but it was basically to make sure that they didn't drop out or get homesick and leave. But they wanted to cram that into 2 months, and everything around me made sense. It was just on a bigger scale. And I got to say, some of the colleges don't have as good a campuses as some of these like private high schools.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If you look at it, a lot of the top tier of these schools have endowments bigger than most colleges.
Yeah.
So like they've been around for longer too.
Oh yeah, because you have multiple generations of the best families, the wealthiest families that have sent their their great grandfather, wealthy great Vanderbilt or whatever grandfather, created the initial endowment, and then every generation of Vanderbilt after that left some part of his estate to that school. So many of them do have endowments comparable to Ivy League schools.
Yeah, like the one that I always recommend people if the sticker shock scares them is the Milton Hershey School out in Hershey, PA, and they basically do that. It's solely for lower income students, but their campus is something that you'd see as like a small college.
PA, that's Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, that's where the Hershey chocolate empire, I guess.
Yeah. And their endowment is 17 to 20 billion.
But you know what? But like you said before,
God damn.
And it's like you said, Harvard's is only like, well, not only it's around 30.
Yeah,
Harvard's is around 30 billion.
I don't know, Brown's
But the issue is, how do you get these black boys to get off the teat?
The titty.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, like, how do you get them off the teat? And then, how do you get them women to basically say,
They have
hey,
to give
look,
up. That's the thing, is how do you get mom to say, I need to let my child go so that my child can be who he's supposed to be?
they can take a lesson.
Only way you're gonna do that is
They can take a lesson. They can take it. It all depends on what you actually want. You know what I'm saying? Out of your sons. Now they say they want these warrior Blackistan type motherfuckers, but like, all evidence is pointing to the contrary. What you really want is a whole bunch of men, like you said, Black Uhuru, who kind of like do what you want, who serve the purposes and the functions that you want them to serve, and those are not martial in nature. You know what I'm saying? But again,
yeah, look, the women are smart enough to know if black boys get a certain type of training, education, and preparation, they're not going to be their lackeys. So the women know that. Now they won't say it. They're far too smart and clever to say that would be what their real issue would be. But they'll say everything else, and they'll use intersectionality, and they'll use feminist doctrine or whatever to give cover to the fact that they want to continue to control and use those boys.
So look,
Black Euro, let's be honest. Women in the 20th century, now in the 21st century, the first 20 years of the 21st century, want and have willingly competed with men. That's why they're not letting go of these boys. Because the minute you do that, now your concern is now you're competing is going to stop. And your biggest concern, which I saw in a post one time on Facebook, said, "Why I want to train my son to be all he could be, so he can be good, strong, and go date out." Because now the fear is they won't need him no more, and not gonna pick them. That's the greatest fear. So they're gonna keep this game going as long as they can, until the larger portion of the black male population is neutered. That's it.
Yeah, but that's only like what 10 million men. And I know a couple of guys.
That's all they need. That's all they need. And, you need to get over 0.5% of the male population in your group to be neutered, and that's all they want.
Yeah, I mean that's a possibility, but I know enough guys who didn't go this path who wound up, one of the guys who's one of my friends now, left home at 17, joined the Marines, and had a hell of a career. Came a pilot, and got the GI Bill and did extraordinarily well for himself. Now he's married, owns a home, has a top tier position. You know what I mean? Like men who, if you want men to succeed or boys to succeed, you can do it with them, or they'll do it in spite of you, or you can cripple them. And I prefer do it with them rather than have them do it than the other two.
Yeah, man. So look, I ain't saying we got to be like Spartans, but I mean, the situation that we're in, man, if we're ever to actually get out of it, might require some militaristic type shit. But you got to train people to be that way. They don't just naturally appear that way. I mean, yeah, they have fights and they get into skirmishes and shit like that. I mean, that's to be expected. But like organized martiality, that's not something that occurs out of a vacuum. That's something you have to be enculturated into. But these women don't want that shit. They want us to be enculturated into what? Effete white society?
No, they want you to be like Lil Nas X. They want you to be that guy, that basketball player, put on a skirt. That's what they want.
Man, so look, this is how the children was raised in Sparta, right? The control of your life started at birth. Like, this is warrior culture. Like, if you really want some warriors, you got to take warrior action. So they were tested, to make sure they embodied the image of a Spartan warrior. Immediately after birth, right? The child was dipped into a bath of wine to test the strength and fortitude. So they believed if the child was weak and had epilepsy or something like that, it would have a seizure. And so they killed the kid. Okay? If the child passed this test, they were then taken by their father into a group of elders. And if the elders found the child deficient, deformed, frail looking, the child was taken to the side of the mountain to die, the Mount Ghettos, right? And the kid lived with the family until the age of 7. But after 7, the kid was taken away from the parents' household and brought to the Agoge. All right? And they never lived with their parents again after the age of 7. The age of 7. Talk about leaving the nest. But we've been raised in a slave culture, not a warrior culture. These are facts. The age of 7, you out of your house. And you're given rigorous physical training, martial training, like discipline. Might not be a philosopher, a doctor, or a lawyer, or some shit like that, but I'm just saying, not to say that they didn't have physicians and things of that nature, because you have to know the body and how to heal it on the battlefield to some degree. You have to be able to take care of injuries.
I'll ask you a question after this, DG, that came to my mind.
But yeah, okay. Well, but all I'm trying to articulate is we don't even have anything tantamount to a fraction of that. All they got us doing right now is going to these whack-ass public schools to learn what from who? In order to become what?
You, DJ, Gigi, I'm 60, right? Now, when I was growing up, we had a lot of those kinds of things. We had a lot of boxing, kickboxing, karate training at the boys' clubs, at the YMCAs. There were lots of, and these were sponsored by your major corporations, Sears and what was then Sears and Roebuck and Montgomery Ward. I mean, there were a lot of men-making entities back then. So, I mean, obviously it wasn't nearly as rigorous and restrictive and warrior making at the level of Spartans. But in the past and I think it was in part because, prior generations, there were actual wars going on up until, recent, I know we've been involved in whatever's going on in the Middle East, but, prior to that, where you had a draft, where significant numbers and percentages of men would actually have to go off to war, we were a lot less skittish about men, where you could play cowboys and Indians, for example. We were a lot less skittish about men being, in an organized way, being violent and learning how to fight and how to kill, and even in some cases, when necessary, how to die.
Mm-hmm. Black, I thought you were, okay, go ahead.
You ain't gonna be learning none of that today. You're gonna learn how to go to the store, get your mama a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
They're gonna teach you how to be Harpo and shit from
in a dress.
The color purple and shit.
Mm-hmm.
In a dress. You're gonna be Harpo in a dress.
Or like the brothers they asking yeah, I mean, I ain't trying to be, man, it's just like right now, man, you turning the little boys into little Nas's and shit, man. You really are, man. Like it's like this is the shit to do now. Turn your son. Even if the Greeks were gay, they still fucking had warrior spirits. Even if they were gay. You think a little dude like Lil Nas X gonna get out there and fight a motherfucker, man? I'm just Big Freedia, or who else? I don't know, man. You know, I ain't trying to run down the line, but I mean, you know, come on, man. Like you get what you put your energy and effort into. And right now, they basically saying don't put no energy or effort into these black boys. Put it all in the girls to do what? To become educated to do what? And educated in what way to do what? To perform what kind of work? And to do what politically?
You're educated to serve and the story. That's what it's always derivatives. They let the one be educated or call educated, and then you get educated and it composed to keep this system going for their benefit. That's why when you show the video of the Spartans, yeah, they want warriors because women want it and allow it. This society, these poor women, no, they want subjugation, they want control, and they're comfortable being the footage of other groups of men. That's what it is.
Look, Metaphor Ace Odar said Big Freedia would fight. I believe that. New Orleans motherfucker's crazy. He said Lil Nas X was scratched.
Yeah. And let's be honest, you think Lil Nas X would exist and men were really that organized today in this modern era?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have gay people, man.
I mean,
you know
not gay people, but just exist generally, you know.
Yeah, it would exist. I mean, you know, look. All I'm saying is right now, man, this is about recognition for those kind of people, man. You know what I'm saying? And to, you know, say it's okay to be right now, man, I'm telling you, it's okay to be anything. It's okay to be anything. It's okay to be fat. It's okay, you know, to be gay. It's okay to be lesbian. It's okay to be everything except for what traditionally it has been okay to be.
And that's just your sex. And duty. Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree on that. I think one of the few things, like anything, to draw the boys to get in some real man stuff is the art of combat. I can see why they took it away.
Yeah, well, you know, hey, man. I just feel sad, man. The world we live in, man, it's just, it ain't like, you know, brothers looking to, you know, like dominate people and walk over and just start telling people what to do. But shit, it's like, damn, like, it's a crazy world, bro. It's just a crazy world, man. What's up, Semper Fidelis?
Hey, how
What's
you
up,
be?
Eric?
Hey, listen, man. Semper Fidelis and the Esprit Corps to you all. Listen, man, my experience has been this. I was asthmatic since birth, right? Now, here it is. I'm like 9, 10 years old. I see a commercial on, right, for Jerome Mackey, right, for learning the practice of karate, right? And when I saw that, I damn near jumped out my skin. The next day, I asked my mom, I said, hey, Mom, I want to go to Jerome Mackey. I want to go to Jerome Mackey. I want to learn karate, you know? Just something I wanted to do as a boy, you know? And my mom said, no, you're too small. You're too young. You hurt yourself. All right? A year or so later, I said, okay, well, how about if I go to the gym, start working out? So I'll just weights a little bit, build up my body a little bit. No, you're too young. You hurt yourself, right? Now, but check this out, though. My mom also told me, I saw a Marine Corps commercial when I was like 10 years old. And she told me that, I said that, Mom, I'm going to do that. I ended up doing that at age 20. MCRD, Parasona, South Carolina, served for 8 years. Didn't go into combat, but did go on a 3-year tour of Marine Security Guard duty, embassy duty. So I did get a little bit of something out of it. And that Marine Corps experience was my rite of passage out of boyhood into manhood. Because whenever I fucked up, it was on me. You fuck up, UCMJ will grab you by your neck. You hear me?
Hear you.
My experience.
Yeah, well, you know, hey, I can, all I can say, I never was dissuaded from doing nothing physical. I was encouraged to do some physical stuff. The first thing I was supposed to do was play baseball, and that shit was boring as hell to me. You know what I'm saying? Just, I mean, little league baseball, man, like it ain't enough happening, especially in the outfield and shit. They had me like in right field, man. I'm like, dude, this shit is killing me, man. The sun is in my eyes, hot as a motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? I'm ready to go to bat. If maybe I was a catcher or a pitcher or a baseman, you know what I'm saying, I probably would have been cool with it. But it was like, man, this is killing me. Football was something that I really enjoyed. You know what I'm saying? Playing little league football, man, that shit was like awesome.
I did that for a year, one season.
I did that, man, since I was 7 years old. You know what I'm saying? So I went to high school. I ain't joined the high school squad, but then I started taking an interest in the DJing and shit like that. That's when hip hop came out. I was like, shit, I'm about to rock the party. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know, man. It's like it's a different world, bro. It's a different world, man. And unfortunately, like my parents went, like my uncle and my mother went to a public high school in the city of St. Louis. They went to Beaumont. All right, which Beaumont is closed down now. It don't even exist no more. But it was a great school for them. I mean, but it was an integrated school. They were among the first to go there. They had to deal with a lot of bullshit. But increasingly the school, as it got more black, and the services started to whittle, and the infrastructure of the inner city started to break down. Man, the school became worse and worse and worse and worse. And now it's closed down. You know what I'm saying? And like anybody who went there got like a world-class education and not being educated.
Well, check this out. The contradiction is this. My mom served 30 years as a CO at a women's prison, no less, in upstate New York, Bedford Hills.
Man, that's hardcore, ain't
it? Tell me about it.
Yeah, the women's prison and shit. Yeah, look, I just don't know. It's to me, if you really want to get an improvement in black boys, man, you got to take them boys, man, and put them somewhere where they can be isolated from all of the, the distractions, and which there's too many. You got too much social media. You got too much distractions in the hood. You got too much distractions in the home life. Them boys need to be taken away where it's stable and where they're, challenged on an ongoing basis. They need a holistic education. You know what I'm saying? Not just an education dealing with books, but like the brother Jules was talking about. Like, we had dinner. We had, like, it was compulsory. It was mandatory. You had, like, not just reading one Shakespearean play, but we reading 3 or 4 of them in a semester or something like that. Or, we building sets and actually going through the motions of acting out the play. You know what I'm saying? Like and I don't know, man. It's like our educational system is not a great one. That's all I can say. It's not a great system overall, not even for white kids, but it's terrible for us. But you know what, man? This stream is like, damn, there's 3 minutes. I mean, it was 3 hours long. I'm like, damn, man, I'm getting hungry, bro. I gotta eat. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. I just want to say one more thing, Professor GG. The Muslims got it right. Getting those young boys into the madrasas, the problem is they get so damn extreme that the boys don't learn anything else. They learn that. They learn to fight, but shit, a lot of them don't live to be old enough to use those skills that they learn, to use that holistic education that they learn in the madrasa started like 6, 7 years old. And I'll say that the Catholic got it right, at least in high school, having all boys high schools. So there's no interference with the girls. You ain't got to worry about looking at the girls looking at you. Nah, it's about the business of studying and getting your education. At least that's been my experience. I went to a Catholic high school in Harlem, no less.
Yeah, I just believe in it, man. And you always get the women anyway. Like where I went to school, man, like them girls was on our jocks.
Mhm.
I mean, you know, to be an all-boy school at a white school, man, we had like, well, I was about to start cursing, but we had people from the city come to our parties. When we threw a party, it was a party to see, bro. I mean, everybody black from the whole St. Louis area came to the school. And, you know, we being, you know, the Negroes we were, you know, we had a black organization and we were supposed to, you know, be fundraising. Man, we put that money in our pockets, man. It was like 7 or 8 of us who were like the ringleaders of everything. And so, yeah, and there was more black people there, but like we was the head honchos, man. We was just pocketing like $700-800, man, from them parties. Like about, because I mean, everybody from every school would come to those parties, man.
Yeah.
Everybody from every school, all the high schools. Yeah, man. So I mean,
$700-800, that's a big bag of change, man.
man, as a high schooler, man, 17, 18, man.
Yeah,
Man, we was doing things we shouldn't have been doing at 17, 18, but you know, I'm not gonna go into that.
I can't imagine.
It's not even
you don't
necessary,
want to
bro.
wind up like the guy, forget his name, the Supreme Court guy, where they bring back some shit that happened when you were 17 years old.
Shit, they bring up shit, man. They'll fix your
you
ass
talking
now
about
for some shit you
Kavanaugh?
did 2 months ago.
Yeah, you don't want to end up like Kavanaugh.
Oh, I wasn't doing nothing. I wasn't really into drugs or nothing like that. But we didn't take, man. We were a small group of black folks at an all white high school, man, and we didn't take no shit from anybody, man. None of them boys, man. Like like that guy coming here saying the N-word. Man, I told this story maybe once or twice here in this space, man. Like the biggest white boy in the high school, man. This boy was like benching, like he was 17, 18. The boy was bench pressing 3 wheels like 10, 15 times. You know what I'm saying? This boy was like thick in the neck. But he called our partner Rich a nigga. We was like, hold on, wait a minute, man. He called you what? Man, that boy got hit so many times, man, in his head, man, with various substances and objects, man. He came to school the next day, man, looking like, you know, Martin Lawrence when, you know, the Thomas Hearns hit on him, boy. That boy was looking, he wasn't looking too good. You know what I'm saying?
That was funny.
Who did this to you? Like, he told all of it, too.
That on Martin. They way over.
But I'm just saying, like, you know, but the point is, you know that you said something that you shouldn't have said. You took it to a place where you shouldn't have took it. Now, you might be thinking it, but I damn sure know you're not about to disrespect our minds by coming out and saying it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Whether it's in passing, like this is we talking about 88, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This fight the power generation type shit going on here, man.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah.
We're not like, no, bruh, don't call us the N-word, man. So
In 88, I was in all places of Kuwait, Muslim country, and they damn sure ain't about that shit.
man, all I can say is, man, we was just who we were, man. You know, but we had our issues and our problems, man. But we were lucky enough to go to a good school, man. But you know that even in higher education, man, black men still have problems, man. Because as I said before, there's research out there that demonstrates that even black men who are successful in every, you know, sense of the term, you know, of how it's characterized in popular culture, those are among some of the most unsatisfied men out here.
Well, all the hoops you got to jump through, all the people you got to placate. And then if you get married, I mean, you know, given the high likelihood of a divorce and what that might do to your, you know, financial situation as well as your relationship with your children. You know, like I've said before, you know, you talk about divorce is not the poorest men who have the biggest problems because they don't have anything. It's not the richest men because they got fuck you money. It's
Right.
the men that are in between, you know, who have just enough such that if they do get divorced, then they really, you know, lose half their pension, you know, half their investment portfolio, their home. They're left with, some huge bills and child support and alimony. It's the brothers who are prosperous but not are overly wealthy that will lose the most. When
Oh
things
yeah,
go
you got
down.
your head on. You got your head on a swivel and jumping hoops.
Exactly. And all of it, pull one thread and the whole damn thing can unravel. One thread. That
Indeed.
Yeah,
woman
man.
leaves you, or and worse, she leaves you and claims you have abused her in some way, or worse, claim you've abused the children in some way. So now, not only
Man.
is your situation impacted with your family, but now that's kind of shit that they can fire you for or compromise your business interests with. So it's when you're in that kind of spot where you can be, as a black man, most vulnerable.
Trust me, bro. And the funny thing about it is, man, a woman will slap the shit out of you, man, and then call the police, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how fucking indignant and obstinate they've become. And then and then they got the nerve to create theories about how they being abused, but they never talk about how they abuse themselves and how they fuck people over and what kind of harm and damage they cause with these fake ass narratives based on cap. You know what I'm saying? Like my whole thing is, if you're a woman enough to start slapping and punching motherfuckers in your house, you fucking woman enough to get your ass slapped back. But they don't have no honor like that. They don't have honor like that, bro.
I think one thing, we men, I guess make my last statement so I can let you out of here. Get out of here. Yeah. One of the things that I think black men in particular must do is disabuse ourselves of this notion that women will fight fair. Women will not fight fair, especially black women. They will use any and every advantage, their gender, the government, the court, the media, whatever. I mean, we see everywhere evidence that black women will not play or fight under a particular kind of rules system that men are apt to adopt. I mean, we men tend to expect how an engagement is going to go down. What's appropriate, what's not appropriate. It's sort of like a Geneva Convention. We have sort of implied rules of engagement. They have no rules of engagement. They basically think because you're a man, I should be able to do anything I want to you, and you can't have the same right to do the same thing to me. And
That's
so
not
that's why I
not
think you
equality,
gotta,
man.
that's why I think you got to sue them, because I think you got to disabuse them of the notion of their privilege.
Yeah, you
That's
gotta
like
start.
you got to
You gotta start
compromise
calling
your
the
ability.
police on their ass. I hate to say it.
Right.
I don't.
Exactly.
I don't really advocate doing that. But you're gonna have to start doing it. I mean, you're gonna have to start telling young men if she get out of line, call the police on her ass, have her removed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they'll
I
call the
agree.
police on you. They know what the implications are of that shit, but they don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
They don't
Well,
care. So I mean,
well,
at the end of the day, if
Officer, she threatened my life. She threatened my property, and God forbid if she's actually done some sort of damage to any of your property, which they're apt to do. She has in the past done this to my car. I mean, yeah, flip all that back on them and put the onus on and ask the police. Well, this will be in a police report, right? I mean, you're here.
man, you got to start
I've,
having cameras everywhere you
I've
are,
been
bro.
abused.
You need cameras for your wife now. It's fucked up,
Yeah.
man. I give up, man. Right now, I don't give up. I'm just saying, I don't want to even talk about this shit no more, man, because I'm gonna get angry.
But yeah,
So
so thanks for having me up on the panel. It was a pleasure to be here, Gigi. Thank you, Jules, very, very much for sharing your story. I think you provide a lot of food for thought for Black men, both in terms of maybe how we should. I mean, well, those of us who are younger or are young enough to make the kind of decisions that you're able to make, or what sort of decisions we might want to make for our own sons or nephews with respect to the possibility of sending them to boarding school. If you got a nephew or young cousin you care about and you have the extra resources, maybe you might want to, help, sort of donate maybe a couple of grand a year or whatever to send your nephew or help send your nephew or your younger cousin or grandson or whatever to a good boarding school. So I appreciate you sharing that with us, Jules. And I really appreciate the information you provide with respect to women and how your past has been helpful in your dealings with women. I hope brothers hear and listen to that. I think that could be very helpful for a lot of us. So thank you, gentlemen, very much. Pleasure to talk with you, and I hope you have a good evening. Thanks.
Hey, pleasure to talk to you as always, Black Uhuru.
Thank you.
Peace, man.
Salute,
Chaos
Black
Reign,
Uhuru.
man. I'm going to talk to Jules last. So,
Okay. Well, let me ask Jules one last question before I jump down. Jules, your degree is in the education department, let me ask, or somewhat in that.
Are they in education?
Yeah.
No.
Like,
one political science, one statistics.
oh, wonderful. Okay. Okay. Oh, I email you, so check your email. But that's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Okay.
thanks, Chaos, for coming on the show, bro.
Okay. Well,
All right,
I'm
man.
putting it like this, man. Saluting the esprit de corps to all the brothers up here. It's called lifelong learning, what we're doing right now. People tell their stories, they tell their experiences, so we know what we're facing. And then we figure out a plan on how to deal with it. It's going to be rough. The struggle is always going to be there. It ain't never going to disappear. So we may as well keep that in mind. And as far as us suing and things like that, that's what it is. Legal remedy is legal remedy. You get your evidence together, you press it in court, you push it as hard as you can. That's what you do. Otherwise, you get no semblance of anything like justice. I'm
True
done.
indeed, my brother. True indeed, man. Thank you so much, man, for joining, bro.
Hey, man, thanks for letting me up, DG.
For sure, man. And last but not least, I want to converse with the brother Jules here, man. Again, man, thank you for coming to the show. I know we got distracted here and there, and we delved off into some subject matter that wasn't necessarily on, on the main topic. But, what we did cover, we had a little mishap at the beginning related to the continuous buffering and the boarding of my microphone. I apologize for that to all the people out there listening as well. I don't know, man. So, like right now, I haven't had any buffering. I have an Ethernet connection. I have a high-speed connection. Like I just don't understand what causes the buffering at various times. And usually it's at the right about the time my show is on. So it must be a lot of activity going on in the area, and there must be some bottlenecking when I'm coming on. But at any rate, man, even though and I even had to act an ass with somebody who came and started trolling in the chat with some racist stuff. But I want to thank you for coming through, man, and telling your story and, giving your spin about what was, qualitatively beneficial to you related to your education, man. So thank you, man. You have any last remarks you want to give, man, before you peel up out of here?
Yeah, those schools are an option, but they're not the only one. And you're also going to encounter, like, I'll tell you one thing I did encounter that I did not expect was the amount of drug use and alcohol use at the high school level was shocking. So like that does exist. And and it's highly frowned upon by the faculty and the administration, obviously, but it does exist there, just so you know.
Yeah, I'm assuming that it would,
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't start at college. That's what I'll tell you. These kids have a lot of money, and the ones who have a lot of money have a lot of access to everything, and they don't get caught. And when they do, they have a million options. So that is a thing. But I just want to see as many opportunities as possible, especially for young boys who don't have as many people trying to push them in the best direction possible. So if my story helped to kind of illustrate how that could possibly happen, I'm glad it did.
Well, thank you for contacting me and leaving me an email. And I'm sorry for my delay in responding to it. It was a couple of days, but
it's fine.
Yeah, but I'm glad that we were able to link up and you were able to tell your story and to give us some sort of indication of what the experience would be like that we at least theoretically mentioned. So, having said that, man, peace out to everybody out there, man, and peace out to you, Jules. And I hope you come join me again at some point, man. At least to just comment if something arouses your spirit, bro.
Definitely. Oh, you know, one thing I would love to see you cover, because you did a dive probably like 6 months ago on Marx. If you could do Cedric Robinson's Black Marxism, that would be interesting, because to see those two compared.
Okay, I'll look into doing that for you. You know,
it doesn't have to be like next week. Take your time, please. But
all right, just leave the suggestion. Email me, and then because I'll forget it. So email me and say this is what I want you to think about. And anybody is free to leave me a comment, leave me an email. G with a PhD at gmail.com. If there's something you want me to talk about or discuss that I haven't covered before, or something that's on your mind you want me to reflect on, I'll do it. So, having said that, man, peace to all of y'all out there, man. It's time for me to go eat. I am starving, man. My stomach is touching my back. So, peace to y'all, man. Until the next time, I'll let you.